Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Ordinary Deceptions. The fluorescent lights of Tri-State Security's break room buzzed overhead as Wade Blackwood mechanically stirred his fourth cup of coffee. His broad shoulders hunched under his ill-fitting guard uniform, a deliberate choice to make him appear smaller, less threatening. At 42, Wade had perfected the art of being forgettable. The slightly overweight, balding security guard with a slight temper who patrolled the Meridian Business Center from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Blackwood, barked Supervisor Finley, a man whose authority extended precisely as far as the building's perimeter. You're late with your hourly check-in again. Third time this week. Wade kept his eyes down, a calculated gesture of submission. Sorry, sir. Won't happen again. Damn right it won't. One more slip-up, and I'm writing you up. Finley strutted away, clipboard clutched to his chest like a shield. Wade waited until the man was gone before allowing the mask to slip momentarily. His eyes, previously dull and unfocused, sharpened as he scanned the room. In 3 seconds, he had counted the cameras, 2, noted their blind spots, and calculated 8 different ways to exit the windowless room if necessary. His phone vibrated. A text from Lorraine, his wife of 5 years, working late again. Don't wait up. Wade's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Fourth time this week. He pocketed the phone and continued his rounds, nodding deferentially to the cleaning staff who had no idea that the shuffling guard had once eliminated an entire terrorist cell in Kandahar without firing a single shot. Colonel Wade Blackwood, call-sign Spectre, commander of Ghost Protocol's most lethal Black Ops team, had been officially dead for 5 years. The decision to disappear had come after the Beirut operation went sideways. 47 confirmed kills throughout his career, and the 48th, a high-ranking government official with ties to human trafficking, had been the one that put a target on his back. His new identity as Wade Blackwood, former Army grunt with anger management issues, had been meticulously crafted. The only person who knew he was alive was General Hammond, his former commanding officer who had helped orchestrate his disappearance, an occasional supplier of security guard positions whenever Wade needed to relocate. The marriage to Lorraine had been unexpected. She'd been a pharmaceutical sales rep who frequented the office building he guarded 3 years ago. Pretty, smart, ambitious, and utterly convinced she'd married a simple man with simple dreams. Wade completed his rounds mechanically while his mind cataloged the subtle changes in his marriage over the past 6 months. Lorraine's late nights, the new perfume, the locked phone, the declining intimacy, all signs he'd been trained to recognize. Information gathering was second nature to him. At home, their modest ranch-style house on Sycamore Lane was dark except for the porch light. Wade disabled the security system he'd personally enhanced, entered silently, and reactivated the perimeter. Inside, he moved through the darkness without hesitation, his eyes already adjusted. Something was different. Wade paused, senses heightened. A scent, unfamiliar cologne lingering in the front hallway. He traced it to the living room sofa, faint but present. Without turning on any lights, he checked the house, finding nothing else out of place except perhaps the slightly askew cushion on Lorraine's side of the bed. Wade opened the false bottom of his bedside drawer and retrieved a small device. The micro-recorder he'd hidden beneath the sofa last week. A precaution, nothing more, he'd told himself, would have captured any conversations in the living room. Wade plugged in earbuds and listened. 20 minutes of silence, then the sound of the front door, Lorraine's voice, and a man's voice he didn't recognize. He's working the night shift again? The man asked. As always, Lorraine replied. Wade's so predictable. Same schedule, same routine. The man hasn't had an original thought in his life. Laughter, kissing sounds, more intimate noises. Wade's face remained impassive, a skill honed through years of torture resistance training. Only a slight whitening of his knuckles betrayed any emotion as the recording continued. I hate this, Lorraine's voice again. The sneaking around. The lies. Just a little longer, baby, the man soothed. The pieces are falling into place. Soon we won't have to hide anymore. The conversation shifted, their voices lowering to whispers that the recorder barely picked up. Wade increased the volume. Confirm the account transfers. Once we have access to the full amount. What if he finds out? Lorraine interrupted, worry evident in her voice. The man chuckled. Your husband? The rent-a-cop with anger issues? What's he going to do? The conversation ended shortly after, followed by the sounds of them leaving together. Wade sat motionless in the darkness, processing the information with the cold efficiency that had kept him alive in hostile territory for decades. He wasn't surprised by the affair. He'd suspected it for weeks. What interested him was the mention of account transfers. Wade had no significant assets, no secret fortune. Whatever they were planning went beyond simple infidelity. Wade slipped the recorder back into its hiding place and lay down fully clothed on the bed, staring at the ceiling. His marriage was a sham, but that wasn't what bothered him. It was the strategic miscalculation. He'd allowed his guard to drop, permitted someone close enough to become a potential threat. For the first time in 5 years, Colonel Spectre Blackwood began to stir beneath the carefully constructed facade of Wade the security guard. In the morning, Wade left for his weekly therapy session, another part of his cover as a vet with PTSD and anger issues. Dr. Byrne was actually one of Hammond's people, a retired field psychologist who had worked with special forces. You've been maintaining your cover well, Dr. Byrne noted, reviewing his file. Any incidents? My wife is having an affair, Wade stated flatly. Dr. Byrne's pen paused mid-note. That's not in the scenario parameters. It's not a drill, doctor. Lorraine is sleeping with someone, and they're planning something that involves finances. I see. Dr. Byrne set her clipboard aside. And how do you want to proceed? Standard protocol. Gather intelligence, assess the threat, neutralize if necessary. Wade, Dr. Byrne leaned forward, dropping the clinical demeanor. You're talking about your wife, not a hostile combatant. Wade's eyes, normally carefully dulled for his cover identity, flashed with their natural intensity. Everyone's hostile until proven otherwise. That's how you stay alive. As he left the session, Wade's phone buzzed with a text from an unlisted number. Solaris protocol initiated. Check dead drop B. Wade felt a chill. Solaris was the emergency communication system Hammond had established, only to be used if Wade's cover was in danger of being compromised. Dead drop B was a P.O. box in a neighboring town. Inside the P.O. box was a single flash drive. Wade took it to a public library, logged onto a computer under a guest pass, and accessed the encrypted files. The first was a surveillance photo of Lorraine having lunch with a well-dressed man at an upscale restaurant downtown. The second was the same man meeting with a known arms dealer who specialized in supplying mercenary groups. The third was a dossier, Dominic Walsh, former CIA asset with suspected ties to several private military companies. The final file was a brief message from Hammond. Walsh has been asking questions about Beirut. Your name came up. Coincidence? Exercise caution. Wade stared at the screen, pieces clicking into place. The man sleeping with his wife wasn't just a random affair. The targeting was too specific, the timing too convenient. This was connected to his past, to the life he'd buried 5 years ago. As Wade deleted the files and removed all traces of his activity from the computer, his mind shifted into operational planning mode. If Dominic Walsh was connected to Beirut, then Lorraine might not be a random target either. He needed more information, and he needed it quickly. That evening, Wade called Lorraine to say he'd picked up an extra shift and wouldn't be home until morning. Instead, he established a surveillance position near their house, waiting patiently as darkness fell. At 8:17 p.m., Dominic Walsh's black Audi pulled into the driveway. Wade photographed him with a long-range lens as Lorraine greeted him at the door with a kiss. For the next hour, Wade documented their movements through the house, noting how comfortable Walsh seemed in his home. When they settled in the living room with wine, Wade activated the remote listening device he'd installed in the smoke detector. Any update from your contact? Lorraine asked. Everything's proceeding as planned. The team is on standby for Friday. Friday? That's only 3 days away. Is that enough time? Walsh's laugh carried through the receiver. Sweetheart, this isn't my first rodeo. Your husband's work schedule is perfect. We know exactly where he'll be. Lorraine's voice sounded tense. I just want this over with, Dom. I hate living like this. Soon, baby. By this weekend, Wade Blackwood will be nothing but a memory and will be $10 million richer. Wade's heart rate didn't change. His breathing remained steady. Only his eyes, cold and calculating, betrayed the shift from information gathering to operational planning. What if something goes wrong? What if he's somehow... Babe, he's a rent-a-cop with anger issues. Walsh interrupted dismissively. He has no idea who I am or what's coming. Friday night, 11 p.m., it'll look like a carjacking gone bad when he leaves work. By the time they find his body, we'll be halfway to the Caymans. Wade had heard enough. He packed his surveillance equipment and slipped away, mind already formulating contingencies. Whatever connection Walsh had to Beirut, whatever information he thought Wade possessed, the immediate threat was clear. They were planning to kill him in 3 days. And Wade Blackwood was going to be ready. Chapter 2. Ghosts Resurface. The storage unit was located in an anonymous facility 30 miles outside the city limits. Wade hadn't visited it in 3 years, but the key still hung on his keychain, disguised as a simple bottle opener. Inside, past the decoy furniture and boxes that any normal divorced man might store, was a false wall. Wade removed it carefully, revealing a small arsenal: weapons, tactical gear, communication equipment, and multiple identities. The emergency cache of a man who had spent his life expecting betrayal. Wade selected his equipment carefully. Nothing flashy, nothing that would immediately connect to military tactics. He needed to be invisible for what came next. As he loaded the gear into a nondescript duffel bag, Wade's mind drifted to his first meeting with Lorraine. It had been at a coffee shop near the Meridian building. He'd been 9 months into his new identity, still adjusting to civilian life. She'd spilled her latte on his newspaper, apologized profusely, and bought him another coffee. Her smile had seemed genuine, her interest in his mundane security guard stories apparently sincere. Had it all been a setup from the beginning? Had he been under surveillance that entire time, targeted specifically because of what he knew about Beirut? Wade shook off the memories. Sentimentality was a weakness he couldn't afford. Whether Lorraine had been a plant from the start or had been recruited later was irrelevant now. The threat was active, and in 3 days they would try to kill him. His phone vibrated. Another text from the unlisted number. Faulkner is compromised. Relocate immediately. Wade froze. Faulkner was Dr. Burns' operational code name. If she was compromised, then Walsh's reach was greater than anticipated. The enemy knew more than they should. Abandoning his original plan, Wade quickly packed only essentials and the bare minimum of equipment. He left the storage facility through the back exit, stole a maintenance worker's truck using skills that Wade the security guard shouldn't possess, and drove to a motel on the outskirts of town. After checking in under a false name with cash, Wade set up a rudimentary command center in the dingy room. His first call was to a voicemail box associated with a number that didn't exist. Ghost 6 requesting emergency extraction. Authentication code Sierra Tango 947. He hung up, knowing that somewhere a computer would process the message and alert Hammond. While waiting for a response, Wade began his research. Using a secure laptop from his cache, he dug deeper into Dominic Walsh's background than Hammond's flash drive had provided. Walsh had been CIA, but his record was spotted with disciplinary actions. Eventually, he transitioned to private contracting, working with companies that operated in legal gray areas. His specialty was asset acquisition and elimination, a glorified headhunter who found people who didn't want to be found. The connection to Beirut was still unclear. Wade had been part of a classified team sent to eliminate a warlord who had been funneling weapons to terrorist cells. The mission had gone perfectly until the extraction, when they discovered their target had a twin brother who was supposedly a CIA asset. The brother had been present at the compound and was killed in the crossfire. Wade remembered the aftermath, the accusations of poor intelligence, the suggestion that his team had deliberately killed a friendly asset, the closed-door hearings. Eventually, they'd been cleared of wrongdoing, but not before being labeled as a liability. That's when Hammond had suggested the Ghost Protocol, a complete disappearance to protect not just Wade, but the entire Black Ops program from further scrutiny. Was Walsh connected to the brother? A handler, perhaps, or a friend seeking revenge? Or was it about the rumored fortune the warlord had accumulated from his weapons deals? Wade's phone buzzed again. Not Hammond this time, but Lorraine, working late again tonight. Don't wait up. He turned off the phone without responding and continued his research. By dawn, he had a clearer picture. Walsh had indeed been the handler for the CIA asset killed in Beirut. After the incident, Walsh had left the agency under a cloud of suspicion, rumors of skimming funds, of being too close to his assets. He'd gone private, but his specialty remained the same, finding people who didn't want to be found. But the most interesting discovery was Walsh's client list. Among the redacted names was one that stood out. Victor Resnick, the twin brother the warlord Wade had eliminated in Beirut. Everything clicked. Resnick wanted revenge for his brother and had hired Walsh to find the ghost team responsible. Somehow, Walsh had traced Wade to his new identity and cultivated Lorraine as an asset, or more likely, recognized her as a potential weakness and exploited it. The $10 million they'd mentioned was likely Resnick's bounty. Walsh and Lorraine would split it after confirming Wade's death. At noon, Hammond finally responded via a secure messaging platform. Extraction denied. Too exposed. Handle locally. Assets compromised up to level 3. Trust no one with clearance below Alpha. Wade's jaw tightened. Level 3 meant most of his support network was potentially burned. Alpha clearance limited his trusted contacts to fewer than 5 people, all of whom were either retired or in positions that made immediate assistance impossible. He was on his own. The realization didn't frighten him. Wade had been prepared for this contingency since the day he'd disappeared. What concerned him was the extent of the compromise. If Walsh had identified him, what about the other members of his ghost team? Were they also being hunted? Wade needed more information, and there was only one reliable source: Walsh himself. For the next 24 hours, Wade conducted surveillance on Walsh's movements, documenting his patterns, his security measures, his habits. The man was professional, cautious, but not paranoid. He maintained a regular schedule that included a morning run, meetings at various upscale restaurants, and evenings typically spent at either his downtown apartment or Wade's house with Lorraine. Most importantly, Walsh carried his laptop everywhere, a secure line to his client and the information Wade needed. By Wednesday evening, Wade had formulated his plan. Walsh had a standing reservation at Castellano's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. He typically dined alone, worked on his laptop, and left by 9:30. Wade prepared carefully, selecting clothes that would allow him to blend in with the restaurant's clientele while concealing the tools he might need. Nothing lethal. He needed Walsh alive and talking. At 7:45 p.m., Wade entered Castellano's through the kitchen, having bribed a dishwasher with $200 for his uniform jacket. He positioned himself at the bar with a clear view of Walsh's usual table, nursing a single scotch and watching the entrance. Walsh arrived precisely at 8, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. He took his usual corner table, ordered a bottle of wine, and opened his laptop. Wade observed him for 20 minutes, noting the Bluetooth earpiece, the occasional glances around the restaurant. Not the habits of a man who felt entirely secure. Whatever Walsh was working on had him on edge. At 8:32, Wade made his move. He approached Walsh's table with the confidence of someone who belonged there. "Mind if I join you?" Wade asked, his voice deeper than the one he used as the security guard, closer to his natural command tone. Walsh looked up, irritation flashing across his face before recognition set in. His hand moved subtly toward his jacket. "I wouldn't," Wade said quietly. "Not unless you want this place to become a crime scene." Walsh's hand stilled. "You're supposed to be at work," he said, his voice leveled despite the surprise in his eyes. "Called in sick." Wade sat down across from him. "Stomach bug. Terrible thing." Walsh closed his laptop slowly. "How did you find me?" "You slept with my wife, accessed my financial records, and planned my murder in my own living room," Wade replied evenly. "Finding you at your favorite restaurant wasn't exactly SEAL Team 6 material." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Walsh's face. I don't know what Lorraine told you, but Lorraine hasn't told me anything, Wade interrupted. She still thinks I'm a pathetic security guard with anger issues who doesn't suspect a thing. He leaned forward slightly. But we both know that's not quite accurate, don't we, Dom? Walsh's expression hardened. Who are you really? Someone who wants to avoid unnecessary complications this Friday night. Wade maintained eye contact. You won't find what you're looking for. And what am I looking for? Beirut. The money. Revenge for Resnick's brother. Take your pick. The slight widening of Walsh's eyes confirmed Wade's theory. You don't know what you're talking about. 47 confirmed, Wade said softly. That's the number you're fixated on, isn't it? But it's 48 if you count the brother. The one whose death apparently wasn't sanctioned. Walsh's face drained of color. Spectre, he whispered, the code name few people knew. Wade didn't confirm or deny. Here's what happens next. You're going to walk away from this contract. You'll tell Resnick I can't be found. You'll end whatever you've started with my wife, and you'll disappear. In exchange, you get to live. Walsh laughed, though there was no humor in it. You think it's that simple? Resnick has invested millions in finding you. He won't stop because I back out. Then I'll deal with Resnick after I deal with you. Wade's voice remained conversational, but his eyes conveyed the truth of the threat. You don't understand the situation, Walsh said, regaining some composure. This isn't just about revenge. Resnick believes you took something from the compound that night. Something worth far more than any bounty. This was new information. Wade kept his expression neutral while his mind raced through the details of that night. His team had been ordered to secure any intelligence before eliminating the target. They'd recovered documents, hard drives, but nothing that seemed particularly valuable beyond standard intelligence. What exactly does Resnick think I have? Wade asked. Walsh studied him carefully. Interesting. You really don't know. He leaned back. The brother was CIA because he had access to something very valuable. The location of nearly $3 billion in gold bullion that had been moved out of a certain Middle Eastern country before it fell. Resnick believes you took that information during the raid. Wade processed this. The intelligence they'd gathered had been handed over to their handlers immediately after extraction. If there had been information about hidden gold, it had never made it back to his team. Someone's lying to Resnick, Wade stated. Or someone's lying to you, Walsh countered. Either way, I'm caught in the middle. And so is Lorraine. At the mention of his wife, Wade's expression hardened slightly. Leave her out of this. Walsh smiled thinly. A bit late for that, isn't it? She's been in this from the beginning. What does that mean? It means, Walsh said carefully, that Lorraine Blackwood isn't who you think she is. Just like you aren't who she pretends to think you are. Before Wade could respond, Walsh's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at Wade with newfound confidence. I think our conversation is about to be cut short. Wade sensed movement behind him, the deliberate approach of someone who didn't want to be noticed. Without turning, he knew he was being flanked. 2 men at your 6, Walsh said quietly. Resnick doesn't trust me to handle this alone anymore. He's been watching me. Wade assessed his options rapidly. The restaurant was crowded. Too many civilians for a confrontation. The men approaching would likely be armed, but wouldn't risk a public firefight. They tried to escort him out quietly, take him somewhere private. Last chance, Wade said. Walk away. Walsh shook his head almost regretfully. Can't. But for what it's worth, it wasn't personal. Just business. It became personal when you involved my wife. Wade stood slowly, keeping his movements casual. To anyone watching, he looked like a dinner companion saying goodbye. Walsh remained seated, confident in his backup. Your wife involved herself. Ask her about Beirut sometime. Might be illuminating. Wade processed this final piece of information as he turned to face the approaching men. They were professionals, nondescript appearances, hands near concealed weapons, eyes constantly scanning. In his security guard persona, Wade would have been intimidated. As Spectre, he merely saw obstacles. He bumped into a waiter deliberately, causing a tray of drinks to crash to the floor. In the momentary chaos and distraction, Wade slipped past the 2 men and through the kitchen, disappearing into the back alley before they could regroup. By the time Walsh's men made it outside, Wade was gone, but his mind was racing with new questions. What was in those intelligence files they'd recovered in Beirut? Why would Resnick think he had taken them personally? And most disturbing of all, what had Walsh meant about Lorraine and Beirut? As Wade made his way back to the motel, one thing was clear. The threat was larger and more complex than a simple revenge killing. Whatever information Resnick thought he had, multiple parties were willing to kill for it. And somehow, improbably, Lorraine was connected to all of it. Chapter 3. Betrayal's Depth. The cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains had been Wade's contingency plan for years, a safe house unknown even to Hammond. Purchased through a shell corporation, maintained by a property management company that believed it belonged to a reclusive writer, it was the perfect place to regroup and plan. After his confrontation with Walsh, Wade had returned briefly to the motel to retrieve his equipment before disappearing completely. His security guard job would report him as a no-show, Lorraine would wonder where he'd gone, and Walsh would realize his target was no longer following the predictable patterns they counted on. The cabin's security system showed no signs of tampering. Wade swept it for bugs anyway, a habit that had kept him alive through 2 decades of clandestine operations. Once satisfied, he set up his equipment and began the process of unraveling the web around him. First priority, Lorraine. Walsh's cryptic comment about her connection to Beirut needed investigation. Wade accessed secure databases using backdoor channels he'd maintained for emergencies. Lorraine Matthews, age 38, pharmaceutical sales representative for Meridian Pharmaceuticals. Bachelor's degree in chemistry from UCLA, master's in business from Stanford. No criminal record, excellent credit score, no suspicious financial transactions. He dug deeper, looking for any gaps or inconsistencies in her history. There, a 6-month period 7 years ago where her digital footprint almost disappeared. No credit card transactions, minimal phone records, no social media activity. The gap ended approximately 2 months after the Beirut operation. Wade pulled up the limited photos he had from before their marriage. In one, Lorraine was at a pharmaceutical conference in Dubai, dated 1 month before Beirut. Wade enhanced the image, focusing on the background figures. His blood ran cold. Standing near the bar, barely visible but unmistakable to Wade's trained eye, was a man he knew, Ibrahim al-Nasri, the right-hand man of the warlord he'd eliminated in Beirut. The connection was impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Somehow, Lorraine had been connected to the target before the operation. Had she been an asset, an unwitting contact, or something more deliberate? Wade's phone vibrated, a secure line that only Hammond knew. He answered cautiously. "Thought you'd be in the wind by now." Hammond's gruff voice came through. "Working on it," Wade replied. "Need some answers first. Make it quick." Byrne was found dead in her apartment. Suicide, apparently, except for the fact that she was right-handed and the gun was in her left. Wade absorbed this. Another connection eliminated. What about the rest of the team? Ghost 2 and 3 are off-grid, probably safe. 4 is in deep cover in Moscow, unreachable. 5. Hammond paused. 5 is missing. Last check-in was 3 days ago. Ghost 5 was Allison Reeves, their intelligence specialist. If she was missing, it likely wasn't voluntary. "This is about Beirut," Wade said. "Not just the operation. Something we found, or were supposed to find." "The intelligence package," Hammond confirmed. "After you delivered it, certain documents went missing before they reached Langley. High-value information about hidden assets. Gold bullion," Wade specified. Hammond's silence was confirmation enough. "How did you know?" "Met with a man sleeping with my wife. Former CIA handler named Dominic Walsh. Works for Victor Resnick now." "Shit," Hammond breathed. "Wade, if Resnick is involved, this is bigger than we thought. His brother wasn't just a warlord. He was the money man for an entire network. Billions in stolen assets, laundered funds, untraceable accounts. And Resnick thinks I have a location of his brother's gold." "Do you?" Wade thought back to that night. His team had recovered numerous hard drives, documents, a laptop, all handed over according to protocol. "No. Whatever was in that intelligence package, we turned everything over to Extraction Team Alpha." "Alpha?" Hammond's voice tightened. "Led by Clarence Whitley." The name triggered Wade's memory. the handler who disappeared 3 months after the operation, suspected of selling intelligence. Never proven, but he had exclusive access to the package for 12 hours before it reached Langley. The pieces were aligning. Whitley took the intel about the gold, tried to sell it back to Resnick, then disappeared when things went sideways. That's our working theory, Hammond confirmed. But recently, chatter suggested Whitley resurfaced, and someone is eliminating everyone connected to the Beirut operation. Resnick thinks one of us has the information, Wade reasoned. He's hunting the entire ghost team. Which brings us back to your wife, Hammond said carefully. Her connection? Wade stared at the photo of Lorraine near Al-Nasri. Working on that. But it's not coincidence. She may have been placed to monitor me. Or worse, Hammond didn't need to elaborate. If Lorraine was more than a monitor, if she was actively involved with Resnick's organization, then Wade had been living with the enemy for 5 years. After ending the call, Wade focused on the most pressing question. What did Lorraine actually know? He reviewed the surveillance recordings from their home. In none of the conversations did Lorraine explicitly acknowledge knowing about his past. Walsh knew, certainly, but Lorraine's phrasing consistently suggested she believed the security guard cover, unless she was maintaining her own cover, even in private conversations. Wade remembered the first night he'd heard them planning his murder. Walsh had said, by the time they find his body, we'll be halfway to the Caymans. Not by the time they find Spector's body, or any reference to his real identity. 2 possibilities. Either Walsh was maintaining operational security even with Lorraine, or she truly didn't know who Wade really was. There was one way to find out. Wade prepared carefully, selecting non-lethal equipment and civilian clothes that would allow him to blend in, but still give him tactical advantages if needed. He left the cabin at dusk, driving a different vehicle than the one he'd arrived in, another precaution from years of fieldcraft. Lorraine worked late on Thursdays, typically returning home around 8 p.m. According to her patterns, she would check in with Walsh by phone upon arriving home, then shower and prepare for bed. The house would be empty, giving Wade approximately 30 minutes to search for evidence of what she knew. He approached the house from the back, using the neighbor's blind spot to cross into his yard unseen. The security system he'd installed himself was child's play to bypass. Inside, the house was dark and silent, exactly as he would expect. Wade moved through each room, searching for any hidden compartments, documents, or electronics that didn't belong. In the kitchen, everything was in its place. Living room, untouched since his departure. Master bedroom, made up neatly. Lorraine had always been fastidious about housekeeping. In the home office, Wade found the first anomaly. The filing cabinet had been recently accessed, with several folders slightly out of alignment. He examined each one, finding only ordinary household documents until he reached the back of the bottom drawer. There, taped to the underside of the drawer itself, was a flash drive. Wade removed it carefully and plugged it into a secure tablet he'd brought specifically for this purpose. The drive was encrypted, but the decryption program he ran identified it as a standard government protocol, one that his specialized software could bypass given enough time. While the program worked, Wade continued his search. In Lorraine's closet, behind a false panel he hadn't known existed, he found a locked metal box. The lock was sophisticated but yielded to his skill set within minutes. Inside, a Glock 19 with suppressor, 3 passports with Lorraine's photo but different names, and a file folder containing surveillance photos. Wade's blood ran cold as he flipped through them. There were photos of him, taken over the course of years. Entering the storage unit, meeting with Hammond, at the shooting range where he occasionally maintained his skills. She had been watching him all along. The tablet beeped, indicating the flash drive had been decrypted. Wade accessed the files, finding a collection of documents related to the Beirut operation, operational timelines, team member profiles, including his own, and most damning of all, a memo from 5 years ago. Asset Mockingbird in place. Target acquired. Surveillance ongoing. Subject shows no awareness of monitoring. Will continue to build relationship as directed. Weekly reports to follow. The date corresponded to 2 weeks after he'd met Lorraine at the coffee shop. Wade replaced everything exactly as he'd found it, ensuring no trace of his presence remained. He exited the house just as headlights swung into the driveway, Lorraine returning right on schedule. From the shadows of a neighbor's yard, Wade watched as his wife of 5 years entered their home, phone to her ear, laughing at something the caller said. Through the kitchen window, he could see her moving comfortably through the house, completely unaware that her target had just discovered her true purpose. Now he knew. Lorraine had never been Wade Blackwood's wife. She had been a honey trap, an asset codenamed Mockingbird, assigned to monitor a ghost who might have valuable intelligence. For 5 years, she had played the role perfectly, building a life with him while reporting his every move to her handlers. But the most crucial question remained unanswered. Who did Lorraine actually work for? Resnick? Walsh? Or a third party entirely? Wade retreated silently into the darkness, piecing together a new understanding of his situation. The planned hit on Friday wasn't just an assassination. It was the culmination of a 5-year deep cover operation. The enemy had been sleeping beside him all along. Chapter 4. Counteroffensive. At precisely 11 p.m. on Friday night, a security guard matching Wade Blackwood's description left the Meridian Business Center through the employee entrance. He walked to the parking lot, keys in hand, approaching the battered Honda Civic that Wade drove to maintain his cover. As the figure neared the vehicle, a black van with tinted windows pulled up silently, blocking the car's exit path. 2 men emerged from the shadows of the parking structure, weapons drawn but concealed from street view. The first man approached from behind, prepared to subdue the target. The second covered him, scanning for any security personnel or witnesses. "Mr. Blackwood," the first man said quietly, "we need you to come with us." The security guard turned slowly, hands raised slightly in surrender. His face, partially obscured by the parking lot's poor lighting, showed appropriate fear. "My wallet's in my pocket," he said, voice shaking. "Just take it, please." "This isn't a robbery," the second man said, moving closer. "Get in the van." Quietly, the security guard nodded nervously, taking a step toward the van. As he moved, his posture subtly shifted, the fearful slouch straightening almost imperceptibly. "Is Mr. Walsh in the van?" he asked, his voice no longer trembling. The men exchanged glances, momentarily confused by the question. Is it Mr. Resnick tonight?" The guard continued, his voice deepening, hardening. The first man raised his weapon higher. "Shut up and move." That's when he noticed the guard's eyes, calm, focused, evaluating. Not the eyes of prey, but of a predator. "Funny thing about Walsh," the security guard said conversationally, "he talks too much. Told me all about tonight's little carjacking gone wrong scenario." The men realized too late that something was very wrong. The security guard's face, which had seemed right in the shadows, now looked slightly off, like a highly realistic mask. Because it was. The first attacker lunged forward, but the guard moved with unexpected speed and precision. One strike to the throat, another to the knee. The man went down without a sound. The second attacker managed to squeeze off one silent shot before the guard was on him, redirecting the weapon and using the man's momentum to slam him against the car. A precise blow to the temple rendered him unconscious. From the van, a third man emerged, already firing. The guard dropped and rolled, drawing a weapon from an ankle holster and returning fire with 2 suppressed shots. The third attacker collapsed. The entire confrontation had taken less than 20 seconds and had been conducted in near silence. The security guard, who was not Wade Blackwood at all, but Silas Murphy, former Ghost 2 and Wade's most trusted teammate, secured the attackers with zip ties. He checked their pulses, ensuring none were dead. Intelligence gathering required live subjects. Silas removed the realistic silicone mask and contacted Wade via encrypted channel. Package secured. 3 tangos, all alive but inconvenienced. Miles away, in an abandoned warehouse at the edge of the industrial district, Wade received the message. "Bring them in. Walsh is already here." The warehouse had been prepared over the previous 24 hours. After discovering Lorraine's true identity, Wade had accelerated his timeline, reaching out to Silas. the only team member he was certain remained loyal and uncompromised. Together, they had formulated a plan to turn the hunters into the hunted. Phase 1 had been the capture of Walsh. A simple traffic stop by a police car that wasn't actually a police car, conducted by Silas in appropriate disguise. Walsh had been secured and transported without incident, arrogant to the end in his certainty that Wade was being dealt with simultaneously. Now, as Silas delivered the 3 additional hostiles, the true interrogation could begin. Walsh sat zip-tied to a sturdy metal chair in the center of a makeshift interrogation room. His expensive suit was disheveled, his confident demeanor replaced by thinly veiled anxiety. "Your extraction team failed," Wade informed him, entering the room. "Just like your intelligence about me was flawed." Walsh's eyes darted toward the door as Silas dragged in the first of the 3 attackers. "This won't end well for you, Blackwood. You have no idea who you're dealing with. That's why you're here," Wade replied simply. He nodded to Silas, who positioned the still groggy attacker in a chair facing Walsh. "Now," Wade continued, "we're going to have a conversation about Beirut, Resnick, the missing gold intelligence, and most importantly, my wife's role in all of this." Walsh sneered. "You won't get anything from me." Wade didn't respond immediately. Instead, he retrieved a laptop and set it on a small table visible to both prisoners. He tapped a few keys, bringing up a video feed. The screen showed Lorraine entering their home after work, moving through her evening routine exactly as she did every Friday. She was completely unaware of the camera that had been disguised as a smoke detector. "Interesting thing about counterintelligence," Wade said conversationally. "The best way to monitor a surveillant is to let them think they're the only ones watching." Walsh's expression tightened. "What's your point?" "My point is that right now, Lorraine thinks everything is proceeding according to plan. I'm supposedly dead in a carjacking. You're coordinating the cleanup, and by tomorrow morning, you'll both be on your way to the Caymans." Wade leaned closer. "Except you're here, and I'm very much alive. You wouldn't harm your own wife," Walsh said, though his tone lacked conviction. "The woman in that house isn't my wife," Wade replied coldly. "She's an asset codenamed Mockingbird who's been monitoring me for 5 years. The question is, who does she really work for?" Walsh's slight reaction, a barely perceptible widening of the eyes, confirmed Wade's suspicion that Lorraine's allegiance was more complicated than it appeared. "I don't know what you're talking about," Walsh attempted. Wade turned to the other captive. "And you? Do you know who Mockingbird reports to?" The man remained silent, glaring defiantly. "Fine," Wade said. "We'll do this systematically." He placed 3 photos on the table, one of Victor Resnick, one of Clarence Whitley, and one of Ibrahim al-Nasri. Dominic Walsh, former CIA handler, now working as a private contractor, supposedly for Victor Resnick, who wants revenge for his brother's death and the recovery of intelligence about hidden gold bullion. Wade pointed to each photo in turn. But al-Nasri was seen with Lorraine before the Beirut operation, suggesting her involvement predates my retirement. And Whitley, who had exclusive access to the intelligence package, disappeared with whatever information Resnick is now hunting. Wade studied both men's reactions carefully. "So tell me, which of these men does Mockingbird actually report to?" The attacker's eyes flickered briefly to Whitley's photo. Walsh noticed and shot him a warning glance. Too late. Wade had seen it. "Whitley," Wade said. "Lorraine works for Whitley." "You're connecting dots that aren't there," Walsh insisted. Wade ignored him, the picture becoming clearer. "Whitley took the intelligence about the gold. He recruited Lorraine to find me, believing I might have backup copies or additional information. She's been reporting to him for 5 years. Wade turned back to Walsh. "But you work for Resnick, which means either you don't know Lorraine's true allegiance, or—" "We're playing both sides," Silas finished, speaking for the first time. Wade nodded slowly. "You're feeding information to Resnick while actually working with Whitley, double-dipping on the payroll." Walsh's composure finally cracked. "You have no idea what you're walking into. Whitley has resources you can't imagine. Government connections, private military contractors, intelligence assets across 3 continents. So, is Whitley," Wade confirmed. "And the gold?" Walsh laughed bitterly. "The gold is real. $3 billion in bullion, hidden by the warlord as insurance. Resnick wants it because it's his family legacy. Whitley wants it because it buys a very comfortable retirement and significant influence. And what do you want, Walsh? To stay alive, he answered simply. I play both sides because that's how you survive in this business. Whitley has the information, but needs you to verify its authenticity. Resnick has the resources to recover it, but needs the location. And I supposedly have, what? I turned everything over after Barut. Walsh shook his head. Not everything. According to Whitley, you kept a backup of the most sensitive files. Insurance, in case the operation was ever questioned. Wade thought back carefully. There had been a moment, just before extraction, when he discovered a hidden safe in the warlord's quarters. Inside had been a single flash drive and a handwritten cipher key. Standard protocol was to document and submit all intelligence. But the chaos of the extraction, gunfire, explosions, the discovery that they'd killed not just the target, but a CIA asset brother, had been distracting. Had he unconsciously pocketed that drive? And if so, what would it be now? If this drive exists, Wade said carefully, what makes Whitley think I still have it after 5 years? Because you're Spectre, Walsh replied, as if the answer was obvious. The man who trusts no one, who always has a contingency plan. Whitley knows how you operate. That's why he sent Lorraine, to get close enough to search every possible hiding place. The implications were staggering. 4 or 5 years, Lorraine had been searching for something Wade himself had forgotten he might possess. Where is Whitley now? Wade demanded. Walsh hesitated. If I tell you, I'm a dead man. You're a dead man if you don't, Silas pointed out reasonably. After a long pause, Walsh nodded toward the laptop, still showing Lorraine in their house. He'll be making contact soon. Friday nights, after the hit was supposed to happen. They'll meet to confirm my success and transfer funds. Where? Hotel Meridian, Presidential Suite. Midnight. Wade checked his watch. Just over an hour from now. What about Resnick? Silas asked. Arrives tomorrow, Walsh answered. Whitley doesn't know. I was supposed to eliminate you, recover whatever files you had, and deliver them to Whitley tonight. Tomorrow, I would tell Resnick the files were destroyed with you, but that I learned the location of the gold in the process. Take his payment, disappear. Playing both sides against the middle, Wade observed. How's that working out for you? Walsh glared silently. Wade turned to Silas. Secure them. We move in 30 minutes. As they stepped away from the prisoners, Silas spoke quietly. You believe him? Parts of it, Wade replied. The connection between Lorraine and Whitley makes sense. The question is, what happens when I don't turn up dead tonight? Lorraine reports failure. Whitley adapts his plan. Wade nodded. And if Whitley is as connected as Walsh claims, that adaptation could include a much wider net. He considered their options. We need to control the narrative. Ow! Wade looked back at the laptop, where Lorraine moved through their home, repeatedly checking her phone, waiting for confirmation from Walsh that wouldn't come. We let Mockingbird report my death as planned, Wade decided. But we control what she reports. You're going to use your wife as a disinformation channel, Silas realized. She's not my wife, Wade corrected coldly. She never was. She's a tool, and now she'll be our tool. Wade returned to Walsh. Call her. Tell her the job is done, but there's a complication. My body and some documents need to be disposed of at the usual location. She needs to meet you there in 20 minutes. Walsh hesitated. And why would I help you? Because if you don't, I'll call her myself and tell her that you've been compromised and the operation is blown, Wade answered simply. How do you think Whitley deals with compromised assets? The color drained from Walsh's face. He knew exactly how men like Whitley handled liabilities. Fine, he conceded. I'll make the call. As Walsh contacted Lorraine with the altered story, Wade prepared for the next phase. The pieces were falling into place, but significant questions remained. Did he actually have the flash drive somewhere? Was it among his cached equipment? And most importantly, what would Lorraine do when she discovered she'd been deceived? Wade was about to find out. Chapter 5. Ghosts and Shadows. The abandoned paper mill at the edge of the riverfront had been Wade and Lorraine's designated meeting spot for emergencies, a detail Wade had suggested early in their marriage as part of his security guard's paranoid precautions. The irony that it would now serve as the stage for their confrontation wasn't lost on him. Wade positioned himself in the shadowed upper level of the mill's main floor, with clear sight lines to all entrances. Silas had taken Walsh to the Hotel Meridian to observe Whitley's arrival, while the three captured operatives remained secured at the warehouse. At precisely 11:47 p.m., headlights swept across the mill's broken windows as a vehicle approached cautiously. Wade recognized Lorraine's Audi, noting that she drove past the entrance first, circling the perimeter before finally pulling up to the loading dock. Standard counter-surveillance procedure, not the behavior of a pharmaceutical sales representative. Lorraine emerged from the car dressed entirely in black, a stark contrast to her usual colorful business attire. She moved with a precision and awareness that Wade had never observed at home. Her posture alert, her movements economical, her hand never far from the slight bulge at her waistband that indicated a concealed weapon. This was Mockingbird, not Lorraine Blackwood. She entered the mill cautiously, using her phone's flashlight to navigate the debris-strewn floor. "Dom," she called out softly. "Where are you?" Wade remained still, observing. She'd come alone, but her hand kept returning to her pocket, checking her phone, possibly providing updates to someone monitoring remotely. "Dominic," she called again, tension evident in her voice. "Is everything secure?" Wade activated a small device in his pocket. Throughout the mill, the minimal security cameras and potential listening devices would experience temporary interference. Not long enough to trigger suspicion of deliberate jamming, but sufficient to ensure privacy. "He's not coming," Wade said, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. Lorraine whirled toward the sound, drawing her weapon in one fluid motion, a level of training inconsistent with her cover identity. "Wait!" Confusion, then calculation flashed across her features. She kept the gun raised. "Ow, what are you doing here? Where's Dom?" "Walsh is occupied elsewhere," Wade replied, stepping partially from the shadows but remaining beyond clear firing range. "He asked me to send his regrets." Lorraine's professional composure faltered momentarily. "You're supposed to be dead." The statement was clinical, an operational assessment, rather than an emotional response. "That was the plan, wasn't it? A carjacking gone wrong. My body discovered tomorrow morning. You and Walsh headed to the Caymans with Resnick's money." Her eyes narrowed. "How long have you known? About the affair?" "Months." "About the murder plot?" "A week." Wade took a measured step forward. "About you being an intelligence asset codenamed Mockingbird, assigned to monitor me for 5 years? That's more recent." The revelation hit harder than he expected. Lorraine's gun hand wavered slightly before steadying. "You don't understand the situation," she said carefully. "Then explain it to me, Mockingbird. Or should I call you by your real name? Because Lorraine Matthews doesn't actually exist, does she?" Her expression hardened. "This isn't personal, Wade. It's just business," he finished for her. "That's what Walsh said too." "Where is he? What have you done?" The professional mask was back in place, but Wade could see the calculations behind her eyes, assessing threats, evaluating escape routes, weighing whether to shoot. "He's having a meeting with Clarence Whitley," Wade replied, watching her reaction carefully. "Your actual handler." The slight widening of her eyes confirmed it. "You're making connections that don't exist. I saw the surveillance photos in your hidden compartment. I found a flash drive with your operational reports. Asset Mockingbird in place. Target acquired. 5 years of lies, recorded meticulously." Lorraine's jaw tightened. "If you know all that, then you understand what you're dealing with. Whitley has resources you can't fight. Government connections, private contractors." "So I've heard," Wade interrupted. "What I haven't heard is why a former CIA extraction coordinator would spend 5 years hunting a retired Black Ops commander. What does Whitley think I have?" "The Beirut intelligence package," she answered, guns still trained on him. "Specifically, a flash drive with encrypted coordinates. To the gold bullion," Wade confirmed. $3 billion in untraceable assets." "It's more than that," Lorraine countered. "The drive contains account numbers, authentication codes, blackmail material on officials across 3 continents. Whoever controls that information controls a shadow network that's been operating since the Cold War. Wade processed this, and Whitley believes I kept it as insurance." "Did you?" The question hung between them. Wade genuinely didn't know. The chaos of the extraction, the compromised operation. Had he unconsciously secured backup? And if so, where would he have hidden it from himself? If I did, it was turned over with the rest of the intelligence package, he answered carefully. Lorraine shook her head. Whitley was the only one with access to the complete package. He claims a critical drive was missing, the one you would have found in the warlord's personal safe. The memory surfaced, a hidden wall safe in the final room they'd cleared, a single drive and cipher key inside. In the chaos of the extraction, had he? We need to work together, Lorraine continued, interrupting his thoughts. Whitley won't stop hunting you. Neither will Resnick. But I can help you disappear, for real this time. Like you helped Walsh plan my murder? Wade's voice carried no emotion, but his eyes had hardened. That was necessary cover, she insisted. Walsh works for Resnick. I needed him to believe I was fully committed. By sleeping with him for 6 months? Something flickered across her face, perhaps the first genuine emotion he'd seen. This is what we do. We use whatever tools we have. You of all people should understand that. What I understand, Wade replied coldly, is that you've been living a lie for 5 years. Our entire marriage was an operation. Not all of it, Lorraine said softly, the professional mask slipping momentarily. Not everything was false. It was the first sign of vulnerability, but Wade recognized the technique. Emotional manipulation was standard procedure when an asset was compromised. Birthday, he said flatly. Anniversary. Moment I thought we were building a life together. All of it was intelligence gathering. Lorraine's expression hardened again. And you were completely honest? The security guard with anger issues? We both lived lies. The difference is I knew what I was doing. The statement hit home. Wade had created Wade Blackwood as thoroughly as she had created Lorraine Matthews. Their marriage had been a performance on both sides, two ghosts playing at being human. What happens now? She asked, gun still raised, but her posture suggesting she was open to negotiation. Now we go see Whitley, Wade answered. Together. Suspicion flashed across her face. Why would I take you to my handler? Because if I do have what he wants, he's the only one who can verify it. Wade took another step forward, now within the range of her flashlight beam. And because right now, Silas Murphy has a sniper position on the hotel, with instructions to take Whitley out if I don't make contact within the hour. Lorraine's expression registered recognition at the name. Ghost 2 is alive? Very. And quite irritated about the attempts on his former commander's life. She weighed her options visibly, finally lowering her weapon slightly. If I help you meet with Whitley, what guarantee do I have that you won't just eliminate both of us? None, Wade answered honestly. Just as I have no guarantee you won't signal Whitley's security team the moment we're in position. A standoff, then. Two professionals, both trained in deception, both accustomed to navigating situations where trust was merely another tactical consideration. Whitley wants what's on that drive, Lorraine said finally. If you have it, or know where it is, he'll negotiate. And if I don't, her eyes met his directly. Then we're both dead. Me for failing, you for being a loose end. The cold calculation in her voice reminded Wade of who she really was. Not the woman he'd believed he married, but a skilled operative willing to do whatever was necessary to complete her mission. Call him, Wade decided. Tell him plans have changed. Walsh succeeded in the extraction, but discovered unexpected intelligence. You're bringing a high-value asset to the meeting. He'll know something's wrong, Lorraine warned. Then convince him, Wade countered. Isn't that what you do best, Mockingbird? Convince people of things that aren't real. The barb landed, but Lorraine's professional detachment quickly reasserted itself. She kept her gun ready with one hand while using the other to dial. The conversation was brief, conducted in coded phrases that Wade recognized as standard intelligence protocols. Lorraine's voice remained steady, her delivery convincing. When she ended the call, she looked at Wade with renewed calculation. He's expecting us in 20 minutes. Top floor suite. He'll have security. I'm counting on it, Wade replied. Lorraine studied him. You're not planning to negotiate, are you? I'm planning to survive, Wade corrected. What happens to Whitley depends entirely on him. She nodded slowly, making her decision. We take my car. You'll be searched before we enter the suite. Any weapons will be discovered. I'm aware. Lorraine hesitated, then asked the question that had clearly been bothering her. How did you know? About me, about Mockingbird? I was careful. You were excellent, Wade acknowledged, and meant it. It was Walsh. He got careless, mentioned Beirut one too many times. Once I started looking, the inconsistencies in your background became apparent. The pharmaceutical conference in Dubai, she realized. Wade nodded. You in the same photograph as Ibrahim al-Nasri, 2 months before Beirut. Too specific to be coincidence. A moment of professional respect passed between them. In another life, they might have made an effective team. We should go, Lorraine said finally, holstering her weapon but keeping her hand near it. Whitley doesn't like to be kept waiting. As they exited the mill, Wade maintained a careful distance. He sent a prearranged signal to Silas, indicating the change in plans. Whatever happened next would determine whether Wade Blackwood, or the ghost behind that identity, would survive the night. In the car, silence hung between them until Lorraine finally spoke. Was any of it real for you? Our marriage? Wade considered the question. I chose to be Wade Blackwood. I committed to that identity. To that extent, yes, it was real. He looked at her profile as she drove. What about you? Was Lorraine Matthews ever real? Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. Parts of her. The parts that loved mornings on the porch with coffee. The parts that laughed at your terrible jokes. The parts that wished things could have been different. But not the parts that mattered, Wade observed. Not the parts that involved loyalty, trust, basic honesty. We don't get those luxuries in our profession, she replied simply. No, Wade agreed. We don't. The Hotel Meridian loomed ahead, its upper floors gleaming with lights despite the late hour. As they approached, Wade noticed the enhanced security. Men in suits positioned at strategic points, communications, equipment visible. Lorraine parked in the designated area and turned to Wade. Last chance to walk away. Whitley is powerful connected. Even if you eliminate him, his organization will hunt you. I'm already being hunted, Wade replied. By Whitley, by Resnick, probably by others who've picked up the scent. Running only delays the inevitable. She studied him, perhaps seeing the ghost commander for the first time instead of the security guard she'd manipulated for years. You have a plan. It wasn't a question, but Wade answered anyway. I always have a plan. That's why I'm still alive. As they exited the vehicle, Wade knew that within the hour, everything would change. Either he would neutralize the threats against him, or he would finally join the ghosts of his past operations. And Lorraine, or whoever she really was, would either prove to be his final betrayal or his unexpected salvation. Chapter 6. Wheels Within Wheels. The presidential suite of the Hotel Meridian occupied the entire top floor, offering panoramic views of the city skyline through bulletproof glass. 2 security personnel met them at the private elevator, conducting thorough but professional searches before allowing them to ascend. Wade submitted to the search without resistance, having anticipated it. He carried no conventional weapons. Those would have been detected instantly. Instead, his advantages lay in training, in Silas's position overlooking the hotel, and in the small non-metallic devices concealed within the seams of his clothing that would escape casual detection. As the elevator rose smoothly to the top floor, Lorraine maintained her professional demeanor, but Wade noted the subtle signs of tension, the controlled breathing, the microscopic muscle movements around her eyes that indicated heightened alertness. He'll try to separate us, she murmured, eyes fixed on the climbing floor numbers. Standard procedure. Wade nodded slightly. Expected. If you actually have what he wants, make the exchange clean. No heroics. He glanced at her. Concern for my welfare. Mockingbird. Concern for both our survival, she corrected. The elevator doors opened directly into an opulent foyer where 2 more security personnel waited. Beyond them, the suite sprawled in understated luxury, muted colors, expensive furnishings, and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the glittering city below. At the center of the main room, seated in a high-backed leather chair like a modern-day monarch, was Clarence Whitley. At 62, Whitley retained the bearing and physique of the military man he'd once been before transitioning to intelligence work. Silver hair, impeccably styled, suit custom-tailored to his still athletic frame, he exuded the confidence of someone accustomed to power. The only indication of advancing age was a slight tremor in his right hand, which he disguised by keeping it casually draped over the chair's armrest. His eyes, cold, analytical, and utterly without warmth, assessed Wade immediately. "Commander Blackwood," Whitley said, using Wade's former rank deliberately. "The ghost of Beirut himself. I've spent considerable resources trying to arrange this meeting." "The carjacking invitation wasn't to my taste," Wade replied evenly, scanning the room as he spoke. "For visible security personnel, likely more concealed. High-end surveillance equipment disguised as art pieces. Multiple escape routes for someone of Whitley's importance." Whitley smiled thinly. "A regrettable necessity. Please sit." He gestured to a sofa positioned across from his chair, with a glass coffee table between them. Wade remained standing. "I prefer to keep this brief." "As you wish." Whitley turned his attention to Lorraine. "Mockingbird, your presence with the commander, alive, suggests complications." Operational parameters shifted, she responded professionally. "The target became aware of our activities, but indicated possession of the intelligence package you seek. I made a tactical decision to facilitate a meeting rather than proceed with termination." Whitley studied her carefully before returning his gaze to Wade. "And do you have what I seek?" "That depends entirely on what you believe I have," Wade answered. "A chess game now, each participant carefully calculating their moves, revealing nothing. 5 years ago, in Beirut," Whitley began, "your team eliminated a high-value target and his brother, the latter, unfortunately, being a CIA asset under my supervision. During that operation, you recovered intelligence materials from a hidden safe in the warlord's quarters. Those materials included a specific encrypted drive containing location data for certain valuable assets." Wade kept his expression neutral. "All intelligence materials were turned over to the extraction team, according to protocol." "Not all," Whitley corrected. "The most valuable piece never reached Langley. Given your reputation for thoroughness and contingency planning, the logical conclusion is that you retained it as insurance." "A logical but incorrect conclusion," Wade countered. "Why would I hide something I didn't know the value of?" Whitley leaned forward slightly, the tremor in his hand momentarily more pronounced. "Because your Spectre, the man who trusts no one, who prepares for every betrayal. The man who disappeared so completely that it took us 3 years just to confirm you were still alive. An uncomfortable truth. Wade had indeed developed habits of securing leverage, creating fail-safes, preparing for worst-case scenarios. It was entirely possible that in the chaos of Beirut, he had unconsciously secured a critical piece of intelligence. "If I did have this drive," Wade said carefully, "what would prevent me from turning it over to the proper authorities now?" Whitley laughed, a cold sound without humor. "Because the proper authorities would eliminate you immediately. That drive contains information that would compromise operations across 3 continents, expose decades of black financing, and identify assets embedded at the highest levels of multiple governments. No one with that information is allowed to live, except the person controlling it." "Which is you," Wade observed. "Which could be you," Whitley corrected, surprising both Wade and Lorraine. "A man of your skills, with your experience, will be an asset to my organization." Wade caught Lorraine's subtle reaction. This wasn't part of any briefing she'd received. Whitley was improvising, which meant he truly believed Wade had the drive. "An interesting offer," Wade replied neutrally. "But it assumes I possess something I've never seen." Whitley studied him for a long moment before pressing a button on his chair. A hidden panel in the wall slid open, revealing a wall-mounted screen. With another button press, the screen activated, displaying the familiar layout of Wade's storage unit, the one he'd visited days earlier. 3 nights ago, Whitley narrated, "You accessed this facility. Our surveillance shows you removing equipment, weapons, and supplies. What it doesn't show is you removing a small safe hidden behind the false wall, a safe that was there according to our previous surveillance, but is now conspicuously absent." Wade kept his expression carefully neutral, but inwardly, he was reassessing the situation. He had indeed removed a small safe, one containing emergency cash and alternate identity documents, but not because it contained any Beirut intelligence. He'd simply been collecting all potentially useful resources. Whitley interpreted his silence as confirmation. The drive, Commander. In exchange, I offer you two things no one else can: your life and your freedom. And if I don't have it, then this meeting concludes less favorably for all parties. Whitley replied simply. Wade weighed his options. The situational dynamics were shifting rapidly. If Whitley believed the drive was in the safe, that created both opportunity and danger. Meanwhile, Lorraine stood perfectly still, her training allowing her to fade into the background while the principals negotiated, but Wade noted her subtle shift in stance, preparing for whatever might come next. The safe contains emergency funds and documentation, Wade stated truthfully. No intelligence drive from Beirut. Whitley's expression hardened. Then where is it? 5 years of surveillance confirms you never transmitted or handed off any such item. Our operations monitored cache, dead drop, contact. Perhaps I destroyed it, Wade suggested. Or perhaps I never had it at all. Tension thickened the air as Whitley's security personnel subtly repositioned themselves, hands moving closer to concealed weapons. Disappointing, Whitley said finally. I'd hoped to resolve this amicably. He turned to Lorraine. Mockingbird, your assessment? Lorraine's response was immediate and professional. Subject demonstrates characteristic evasion techniques. High probability he possesses the intelligence, but is withholding until he secures additional guarantees. Her analysis was exactly what a handler would expect from an experienced operative, and it bought Wade precious seconds. He had been evaluating the security team's positions, identifying weaknesses, calculating optimal paths through the suite. Now, he just needed the right moment. Whitley nodded thoughtfully. Very well. Perhaps we need to adjust our negotiating position. He gestured to one of the security men, who stepped forward with a tablet and placed it on the coffee table. The screen displayed a live feed of a hospital room where a man lay unconscious, connected to monitoring equipment. Wade recognized him instantly. Silas Murphy. Your colleague was apprehended attempting to establish a sniper position overlooking this building, Whitley explained. I employ former Ghost 4 as head of my security detail. He recognized Ghost 2's methodologies immediately. The revelation hit Wade like a physical blow. Ghost 4, Thomas Reese, had been believed missing in Moscow. Instead, he was working for Whitley, which meant the compromise extended further than anyone had realized. Reese is alive, Wade said flatly. Very much so, Whitley confirmed. And quite effective at anticipating your tactics, given your shared training. Did you really think I wouldn't have countermeasures in place for your arrival? Wade reassessed the security personnel in the room with new understanding. If 4 was involved, then their positions, their readiness, their tactics would all be specifically designed to counter his own training. The dynamic had shifted dramatically. Now, Whitley continued, let's dispense with the games. The drive, Commander, where your loyal friend Silas joins the casualties of Beirut. Wade looked at the tablet, noting the hospital room's details, equipment, layout, visible signage, calculating where Silas might be held. Even if I had the drive, it would be secured, not something I carry with me. Then call whoever is monitoring your dead drops, Whitley pressed. Arrange retrieval. As the tension in the room escalated, Wade's attention was caught by Lorraine's almost imperceptible reaction to Whitley's mention of dead drops. A micro-expression of genuine surprise quickly suppressed. Something wasn't aligning with her briefings or expectations. There's no one monitoring anything, Wade replied truthfully. No team, no backup, no hidden network. That's why they call it a ghost protocol. Whitley's patience visibly thinned. Your stubbornness is becoming tiresome, Commander. Perhaps a more direct approach is needed. He nodded to one of his security men, who moved toward Wade with practiced efficiency. What happened next occurred in a carefully choreographed sequence that appeared chaotic to the untrained eye, but was precisely calculated violence to those who understood combat at Wade's level. The first security man reached for Wade, who stepped into the movement rather than away, disrupting the man's balance while simultaneously removing a thin carbon fiber card from his sleeve, the first of his concealed tools. The card, when flexed correctly, became rigid enough to serve as an impact weapon. One strike to the carotid sinus, and the man collapsed, unconscious but alive. The second security officer drew his weapon, but Wade was already moving, using the first man's falling body as a shield while extracting another concealed tool, a compressed spray canister disguised as a shirt button. He discharged it directly into the second man's face, the concentrated capsaicin compound causing immediate incapacitation. Whitley reached for something beneath his chair, likely a panic button or weapon, but stopped as Lorraine's voice cut through the chaos. Don't. She had drawn her own weapon, but instead of pointing it at Wade as everyone would have expected, she had it aimed directly at Whitley. The remaining security personnel froze, caught in the unexpected standoff. Mockingbird, Whitley said carefully, explain yourself. The operational parameters have changed, she replied coolly. CIA Internal Affairs. Authorization Code, Tango 7 Zulu Foxtrot. Clarence Whitley, you're under investigation for treason, theft of classified materials, and conspiracy against the United States government. The revelation stunned everyone in the room, none more than Wade. Lorraine was CIA, not Whitley's operative, but someone investigating him. Whitley recovered quickly. A clever ploy, but ineffective. Internal Affairs has no jurisdiction over retired personnel. They do when those personnel steal classified intelligence and sell it to foreign entities, Lorraine countered. We've been building the case for 5 years. Wade Blackwood was never the target. You were. He was the bait. Wade processed this new information rapidly. If Lorraine was telling the truth, then their entire marriage had still been a lie, but for entirely different reasons than he believed. Stand down. Lorraine ordered the remaining security men, unless you want to add aiding and abetting to your charges. The men looked to Whitley, who remained outwardly calm despite the dramatic shift in power dynamics. An interesting development, he said, addressing Wade. It seems we've both been manipulated by the company. Wade kept his stance ready, evaluating this new scenario. If she's Internal Affairs, why the elaborate plan to kill me tonight? Because we needed Whitley to believe I was committed to his operation, Lorraine answered, her weapon unwavering. The hit was never going to succeed. We had a team in place to intercept Walsh's men. Then why involve Resnick? Why the elaborate story about the gold? Because it's real, Whitley interjected. The gold, the intelligence network, all of it. It's worth far more than whatever the agency is paying her. He focused on Lorraine. What's your real name, by the way? Since Lorraine Matthews is clearly as fictional as her marriage. A flicker of emotion crossed her face before the professional mask reasserted itself. Special Agent Diana Keller. 5 years undercover, building the case against you and your network. We know about the accounts in Singapore, the operations in Eastern Europe, the officials you've compromised. Whitley laughed softly. And yet, you don't have the most important piece, the drive with the complete network information. Without it, you have nothing but circumstantial evidence against a retired CIA officer with an exemplary record. We have Walsh, Wade stated, testing a theory. And whatever he told us about your operation. A slight tightening around Whitley's eyes confirmed Wade's suspicion. Walsh knew more than Whitley was comfortable with. Walsh is a mercenary who will say anything to save himself, Whitley dismissed. His testimony would never hold up. We don't need it to, Diana/Lorraine replied. We have financial records, surveillance, communications intercepts. Enough to put you away for the rest of your life. The standoff continued, the tension in the room palpable. Wade knew they were at a critical juncture. Whatever happened in the next few moments would determine whether any of them left the suite alive. What about Silas? Wade demanded, nodding toward the tablet, still displaying his unconscious friend. Agent Murphy was briefed on the operation, Diana answered, surprising Wade again. His capture was unexpected, but contingencies are in place. Silas knew? Was part of this CIA operation? The layers of deception seemed endless. Whitley smiled thinly. I believe we've reached an impasse. You want me. I want the drive, and the commander here apparently has neither the drive nor the complete picture. He leaned back slightly. Perhaps a renegotiation is in order. There's nothing to negotiate, Diana insisted. Your operation is blown. Extraction teams are already on their way. Are they? Whitley asked mildly. Because if that were true, they'd already be here. He gently tapped a device on his wrist. No communications have left this room since you arrived. No extraction team is coming because no signal has been sent. Wade noticed Diana's momentary hesitation, confirmation that Whitley was correct. They were isolated, cut off from whatever backup she might have arranged. Now, Whitley continued smoothly. Let's discuss our mutual interests. Commander Blackwood wants his friend safe. Agent Keller wants her case. And I want the drive that was taken from the Beirut compound. I don't have it, Wade repeated firmly. But you know where it is, Whitley insisted. You secured it somewhere even you wouldn't think to look. The perfect hiding place. A security measure so deep that you yourself forgot about it. The conviction in Whitley's voice gave Wade pause. Was it possible? Had he hidden the drive so thoroughly that he'd buried the memory itself? A fragment of recollection surfaced, the chaos of the extraction, the hidden safe, putting something in his tactical vest's hidden compartment. After the operation, standard procedure was to surrender all equipment, but Wade had kept that vest. It was among his most reliable gear, modified specifically for his requirements, and currently stored in the cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Wade kept his expression neutral, but something must have shown because Whitley smiled triumphantly. You remember now, don't you? Where you secured it. Before Wade could respond, Diana interjected. Whatever you're thinking, Wade, don't. He's manipulating you. Says the woman who pretended to be my wife for 5 years. Wade replied coldly. Diana flinched almost imperceptibly. That was the assignment. But the objective was always Whitley, not you. A noble justification for an extended deception, Whitley observed. Tell me, Agent Keller, did you report every aspect of your cover maintenance to your handlers? Every intimate detail of your 5-year portrayal of Lorraine Blackwood? The barb struck home. Diana's jaw tightened, but her weapon remained steady. Wade assessed the impasse clinically. Whitley was right. They each wanted something the others controlled. The tactical approach was clear. Negotiate from strength while preparing to exploit weakness. Silas first, Wade stated. I want video confirmation that he's alive and unharmed, and his location. Whitley considered this. Reasonable. And in exchange, I'll tell you if I have the drive or know where it might be. Wade, don't, Diana warned. Once he has what he wants, we're both disposable. So are we if his security team decides to rush the room? Wade countered. We're negotiating from a temporary position of strength that weakens with every passing minute. Whitley smiled slightly, recognizing the tactical assessment for what it was. Your reputation for strategic thinking is well earned, Commander. He pressed a button on his chair. Thomas, bring our guest up to the suite. It seems a face-to-face reunion is in order. Wade tensed at the mention of Thomas Reese, Ghost 4, now working for Whitley. Another betrayal from within his former team. While they waited, Wade maintained his ready stance, mind racing through contingency plans. Diana kept her weapon trained on Whitley, but Wade noted her increasingly frequent glances at her watch. Whatever timetable she was operating on was becoming critical. How much it was real? Wade asked her quietly, maintaining situational awareness while addressing the question that lingered despite the tactical priorities. Diana's eyes flicked to him briefly. This isn't the time. It's exactly the time, he replied. Full disclosure improves operational coordination. She hesitated before answering. The operation was real. The marriage was cover. A pause. But not everything that happened within that cover was false. Before Wade could process this, the suite's private elevator chimed. All attention shifted to the doors as they slid open to reveal Thomas Reese, Ghost 4, supporting a groggy but conscious Silas Murphy. Reunion complete, Whitley announced. Now, Commander, you're part of the bargain. Wade locked eyes briefly with Silas, who gave him an almost imperceptible nod, a prearranged signal from their shared operational history that indicated he was functional despite his appearance. The drive may be in my tactical vest from the Beirut operation, Wade admitted carefully. Secured in a hidden compartment and subsequently forgotten in the chaos of the extraction. Whitley's eyes gleamed with triumph. And where's this vest now? Somewhere secure, Wade replied vaguely. I'll need to verify personally. Of course, Whitley agreed too readily. We'll arrange transportation immediately. Diana interjected. This is a mistake. Whatever's on that drive is classified intelligence that belongs to the United States government. The United States government, Whitley said dismissively, has no idea what's actually on that drive. They believe it contains conventional intelligence about terrorist networks and weapons caches. The actual contents would never be acknowledged even if you delivered it to Langley personally. Wade watched the interaction carefully, noting the ring of truth in Whitley's statement and Diana's barely perceptible reaction. What is actually on the drive? Wade pressed. Whitley considered him thoughtfully before responding. Insurance. Decades of it. Every black operation, unofficial assassination, political manipulation conducted by our government and others. Names, dates, bank accounts, compromised officials. Whoever controls that information controls the shadow world that exists behind official policy. And you intend to use it for personal gain, Diana accused. I intend to use it exactly as it was intended, Whitley corrected, as leverage to ensure cooperation, to maintain certain balances of power, to prevent any single entity from achieving dominance. By selling access to the highest bidder, she countered. By charging for services rendered, he amended. Just as our government has always done, but without the hypocrisy of claiming moral authority. The ideological standoff was interrupted by Reese moving Silas further into the room. As they approached, Wade noted Silas's condition, drugged but increasingly alert, no visible serious injuries. He'll be fine, Reese stated flatly, his voice bringing back memories of countless operations. Standard sedative protocol, nothing permanent. Wade addressed his former teammate directly. Interesting career change for... Reese's expression remained professional, but something like regret flickered in his eyes. The program was being dismantled, assets discarded. Whitley offered continuity of purpose. And better compensation, Wade observed. A slight shrug. That too. The tactical situation had evolved with Silas and Reese's arrival. Now 5 principals occupied the suite, each with their own objectives and capabilities. Wade calculated odds, angles, timing, formulating contingencies for multiple scenarios. So we proceed as follows, Whitley announced, taking control of the narrative. Commander Blackwood leads us to the drive. Agent Keller accompanies us as assurance of CIA cooperation. Mr. Murphy remains here as insurance of the commander's good behavior. Upon successful recovery of the drive, everyone goes their separate ways. And we're supposed to trust that you'll just let us walk away? Diana asked skeptically. Trust has nothing to do with it, Whitley replied. Mutual self-interest governs our arrangement. I want the drive more than I want retribution. The commander wants his friends safe more than he wants to eliminate me. And you, Agent Keller, want to survive this encounter more than you want to arrest me tonight. The cold logic was undeniable. It was exactly how operators like them thought, calculating values, priorities, acceptable losses. One condition, Wade stated. Silas comes with us. Reese stays here as Whitley's proxy. Whitley considered this. Acceptable, provided Mr. Reese maintains open communication with me throughout. Fine, Wade agreed. But we use my transportation, my route. Also acceptable with the addition of a tracking protocol, so my team can follow at a distance. The negotiations continued, establishing parameters, contingencies, verification methods. The meticulous planning of professionals who trusted nothing to chance and no one completely. Throughout the exchange, Wade watched Diana, noting her controlled reactions, her professional assessment of each point. Whatever her true feelings about their 5-year deception, she compartmentalized perfectly, exactly as a deep cover operative would. Within 30 minutes, the details were finalized. Wade, Diana, and Silas would lead a retrieval operation to secure the drive, followed at a distance by Whitley's security team. Upon verification of the drive's authenticity, They would part ways, a tenuous truce based entirely on temporary aligned interests. As they prepared to depart, Whitley addressed Wade one final time. "Remember, Commander, that I trained the men who trained you. Whatever contingencies you're planning, I've already anticipated them." Wade met his gaze steadily. "Then you know exactly what will happen if you deviate from our agreement." A moment of perfect understanding passed between them, two master strategists acknowledging the deadly game they were playing. As they left the suite, Wade knew that the next few hours would determine not just whether he survived, but the fate of secrets powerful enough to reshape the hidden foundations of global power. And beside him walked the woman who had shared his bed for 5 years while systematically betraying him. Now his uncertain ally in a mission where trust was simultaneously essential and impossible. The hunter had become the hunted, but the true question remained. Who was hunting whom? Chapter 7. Truth and Consequences. Dawn was breaking over the Blue Ridge Mountains as Wade navigated the final stretch of winding road to the cabin. Beside him sat Diana. He couldn't think of her as Lorraine anymore, alert despite the hours of tense travel. In the back seat, Silas had fully recovered from the sedatives, his eyes constantly scanning their surroundings for signs of pursuit or ambush. The drive from the city had been conducted in rigid operational silence, broken only by necessary communications. No one had mentioned the 5 years of deception, the complex web of betrayals, or the uncertain allegiances that now bound them together in this dangerous mission. 2 miles ahead, Wade finally said, breaking the silence. "The cabin is secured but not fortified. If Whitley's team makes a move, we'll have minimal defensive advantage." Diana nodded, professional to the core. "How long do we need?" 10 minutes to retrieve the vest. Another 5 to verify if the drive is there. After that, it depends entirely on whether I actually have what Whitley wants. "And if you don't?" Silas asked from the back seat. Wade met his eyes in the rearview mirror. "Then we implement Contingency Mako." Silas nodded his understanding. Contingency Mako was a ghost team protocol for situations where all conventional options have been exhausted. Essentially, a final stand where survival was secondary to mission completion. "What exactly is on that drive that makes it worth all this?" Diana asked, her first non-operational question of the journey. "Your internal affairs," Wade replied coolly. "Isn't that information in your briefing?" A flash of something, frustration, perhaps, or regret, crossed her face before the professional mask returned. "My assignment was to monitor you for signs of communication with Whitley or other compromised handlers. The drive's specific contents were classified above my clearance level." "Convenient," Wade observed. "Standard compartmentalization," she corrected. "You know how intelligence operations work." Indeed he did, which made her explanation plausible but not necessarily truthful. 5 years of deception had eroded any benefit of the doubt he might have extended. The cabin came into view, a rustic structure deliberately designed to appear ordinary despite its carefully chosen tactical position with clear sight lines in all directions. Wade performed a slow drive-by, checking for signs of tampering or surveillance, before pulling around to the concealed rear approach. "Clear so far," Silas confirmed, having conducted his own visual sweep. "Whitley's team is maintaining the agreed perimeter." "For now," Wade responded. He turned to Diana. "You stay in the vehicle. Engine running, ready for immediate extraction if necessary." She shook her head. "Not happening. I go where the drive goes." "Your professional dedication is touching," Wade said coldly. "It's not about dedication," she replied. "It's about not letting that drive fall into the wrong hands, including yours." Wade studied her for a moment. "After 5 years of lying to my face every day, you're concerned about my ethics?" Something flickered in her eyes, not quite hurt, but perhaps a recognition of the damage done. "The operation required deep cover. That doesn't mean I enjoyed the deception." "Save it for your mission report," Wade replied, exiting the vehicle. He and Silas approached the cabin with practiced caution, maintaining covering positions for each other despite their confidence that the perimeter remained secure. Diana followed several paces behind, her own training evident in her movement patterns and situational awareness. Inside the cabin, Wade went directly to a concealed panel in the floor beneath a worn area rug. The hidden storage space contained select equipment too sensitive for the storage unit, including his original tactical gear from the Beirut operation. The vest was exactly as he remembered, custom-modified, battle-worn, designed with multiple hidden compartments for emergency supplies. Wade examined it carefully, memories of that night flooding back as his fingers traced familiar damage patterns. Inner left panel, he murmured, recalling now the moment in the warlord's compound when he'd secured a small object while under fire. The hidden pocket, accessible only by removing an internal stabilizing plate, had been his own modification, unknown even to his team. Wade extracted the plate carefully, revealing a slim cavity behind it. Inside lay a small flash drive and a folded piece of paper, the cipher key. "You actually had it," Diana said quietly, watching from several feet away. All this time, apparently, Wade acknowledged, equally surprised despite Whitley's conviction. The chaos of the extraction, the subsequent hearings, the decision to disappear, all had pushed this final contingency measure from his conscious memory. Silas maintained his watch position at the window. "Whitley's team is getting restless. 2 vehicles repositioning closer to our approach road." Wade examined the drive without connecting it to any device. Standard intelligence protocol would be to verify contents before proceeding, but any attempt to access the drive might trigger security measures or alert monitoring systems. "We need to make a decision," he said, looking at Diana. "Your agency wants this drive. Whitley wants this drive. Resnick wants this drive. Everyone seems willing to kill for it. The question is, what happens once someone has it?" Diana maintained her composure, but Wade detected the subtle indicators of internal conflict. "Protocol dictates secure transport to Langley for analysis by authorized personnel only. And you believe that will happen?" Wade pressed. "That this information, whatever it is, will be properly secured rather than exploited? It's classified intelligence that belongs to the United States government," she insisted. "It's leverage," Wade corrected. Whitley called it insurance. "Information powerful enough that everyone who knows about it is either hunting it or being hunted. Once it reaches your superiors, what guarantee do we have that it won't be used exactly as Whitley intends to use it?" Diana hesitated, and in that hesitation, Wade saw confirmation of his suspicion. She had doubts about her own chain of command. "2 minutes," Silas warned from the window. "Whitley's lead vehicle is moving to block the access road." Decision time. Wade weighed options, calculating scenarios with the cold efficiency that had kept him alive through decades of high-risk operations. Finally, he reached a conclusion. "We split up," he announced. "Silas takes the actual drive and heads north through the forest trail. Diana and I take a decoy and head back toward the main road as planned. Whitley's team will follow us, giving Silas time to reach the secondary extraction point." Diana's eyes narrowed. "And what happens to the drive after that?" "It goes where it can do the least damage," Wade answered. "To someone with no personal stake in its contents." Hammond, Silas realized. Wade nodded. "He's the only one in this mess who's consistently prioritized operational integrity over personal gain." "I can't allow that," Diana stated firmly. "That drive contains classified intelligence that your superiors may be as willing to exploit as Whitley," Wade interrupted. "You've spent 5 years investigating internal corruption. Are you certain your own chain of command is clean?" The question hit its mark. Diana's hesitation revealed her uncertainty. "Time's up," Silas reported. "Vehicles approaching from both directions." Wade made the final call. "Implement the split. Silas, you have the package. Diana and I will draw their attention." He handed Silas the drive and cipher key, then passed Diana a similar-looking flash drive from his equipment cache. "This contains enough classified data to be convincing upon initial inspection." Silas moved to the rear exit, pausing briefly. "If this goes sideways." "Mako protocol," Wade confirmed. "Complete the mission at all costs." The 2 men exchanged a brief nod, the understated acknowledgement of operators who understood the potential finality of their decisions. As Silas disappeared into the forest behind the cabin, Wade turned to Diana. "Ready to continue your performance as my wife one last time?" Something unreadable crossed her face before she responded. "Let's finish this." They exited through the main entrance, the decoy drive secured in Wade's pocket, and approached their vehicle with deliberate casualness. A couple returning from retrieving something from their weekend cabin. Nothing more. Whitley's security team was visible now, blocking both approach roads with black SUVs. As Wade and Diana reached their vehicle, Thomas Reese emerged from the lead SUV and approached them. "Whitley wants confirmation," Reese stated without preamble. Wade held up the decoy drive. "Found it exactly where I thought. Hidden compartment in my old tactical vest." Reese studied him carefully. "He'll want to verify contents before you leave." "That wasn't our agreement," Wade countered. "Verification occurs at the neutral location we established." "Plans change," Reese replied simply. "Whitley's waiting at the main road. You ride with us." Diana stepped forward. "That violates our established protocol. We maintain possession until—" "This isn't a negotiation," Reese interrupted. "Whitley suspected you might try something creative, which is why we've had the cabin under surveillance since before you arrived." Wade's mind raced, calculating the implications. If they'd been watching the cabin, they might have seen Silas leave with the actual drive. "If you had surveillance on the cabin," Wade challenged, "you'd know exactly what we found and where we stored it." Reese's expression didn't change, but a subtle tension in his posture told Wade what he needed to know. They were bluffing. They had followed protocol and maintained the agreed perimeter, which meant Silas had a chance. "We don't have time for games," Reese stated. "Whitley wants the drive. Now." Diana moved closer to Wade, her body language shifting subtly into a defensive position. "We understand, but rushing this makes everyone nervous. Let's all take a breath and proceed according to the established plan." Wade recognized her attempt to de-escalate, buying time for Silas to put distance between himself and the cabin. He decided to support her approach. "The drive's right here," Wade said, holding up the decoy. "I'm not trying to withhold it. I just want to ensure everyone honors their commitments." Reese studied them both, his training allowing him to sense the subtle coordination between them. "Something's off," he concluded. "You two are working together too smoothly for people who just discovered mutual betrayal." "Survival creates strange alliances," Wade replied. Reese's hand moved toward his concealed weapon. "Final opportunity. You both come with me to Whitley, now or—" The distant sound of a vehicle engine roaring to life interrupted him. One of Whitley's SUVs, previously positioned at the forest edge of the property, suddenly accelerated down the gravel path away from the cabin. Reese immediately recognized the implications. "Silas," he growled, raising his radio. "Target 3 is mobile with package. Southeast Access Road." Wade used the momentary distraction to close the distance, executing a strike to Reese's radio hand while simultaneously drawing him off balance. Diana moved with surprising coordination, retrieving her concealed weapon and covering their position against the remaining security personnel who were now emerging from their vehicles. "Run," Wade commanded, already maneuvering Reese into a restraint position. "Get to the vehicle." Diana hesitated only a fraction of a second before sprinting toward their SUV. The security team opened fire, but Wade had positioned himself and Reese to block their clear shots, using his former teammate as both shield and hostage. "Tell them to stand down," Wade demanded, applying precise pressure to Reese's carotid artery. Reese, true to his training, simply smiled grimly. "You won't make it out of these mountains alive, Spectre." "Neither will you if they keep firing," Wade noted as bullets impacted nearby trees. The momentary standoff ended as Diana screeched their vehicle into position beside them, driver's door open. "Now wait." In one fluid motion, Wade rendered Reese unconscious with a practiced technique, retrieved his weapon, and dove into the vehicle. Diana accelerated before the door was fully closed, the SUV fishtailing on the gravel before finding traction. "Silas," Wade asked, scanning their six for pursuit. creating a diversion, Diana replied, her driving demonstrating training well beyond what any pharmaceutical sales representative would possess. He took one of their vehicles to draw attention while we escape in another direction. Smart, Wade acknowledged, but not sustainable. They'll realize he doesn't have the drive and refocus on us. Which is why we need to disappear fast, Diana said, executing a sharp turn onto a narrow forest track that didn't appear on any civilian maps. This connects to an old logging road 3 miles north. Less direct, but better cover. Wade raised an eyebrow. You seem familiar with escape routes in my supposedly secret location. Diana kept her eyes on a rough track. Part of my operational preparation. I've mapped every possible extraction route within 50 miles of all your known locations. 5 years of thoroughness, Wade observed coldly. She absorbed the barb without visible reaction. 5 years of ensuring I could keep you alive if the operation went sideways. Before Wade could respond, gunfire erupted behind them. Whitley's team had found their trail. Diana executed evasive maneuvers while Wade returned suppressive fire from the passenger window, not aiming to hit targets, but to slow pursuit. We need to ditch this vehicle, Wade decided. They're tracking it somehow. Diana nodded. Ridge point 2 miles ahead. We could go on foot from there, use the ravine for cover. Their coordination was seamless despite the emotional and trust barriers between them. Years of professional training superseding personal feelings in a crisis situation. As they approached the ridge, Diana suddenly asked, did Silas actually take the real drive? Wade glanced at her. You think I'd tell you if he didn't? I think we're past the point where divided objectives help either of us survive, she replied pragmatically. After a calculated pause, Wade nodded. Yes, Silas has the actual drive. The decoy will buy time, but won't withstand serious analysis. So your plan is for Hammond to receive it, Diana confirmed. Then what? That depends on what's actually on it, Wade answered. Hammond will make that determination based on content, not personal agenda. And you trust his judgment over everyone else's? I trust that he understands the implications of misusing that kind of leverage, Wade stated. More than Whitley, more than Resnick, and possibly more than your superiors at Langley. Diana didn't argue the point, which Wade found telling. Either she agreed, or she had another agenda she wasn't yet revealing. They reached the ridge point, a clearing that offered momentary visibility before the terrain dropped steeply into a thickly forested ravine. Diana stopped the vehicle, and they both exited quickly, gathering only essential equipment before heading toward the ravine on foot. Wait, Wade said suddenly, retrieving something from the vehicle's storage compartment, a small remote detonator. Insurance policy. Diana's eyes widened slightly. You rigged our transportation? I rig everything, Wade replied simply, activating the device as they moved away from the vehicle. The resulting explosion was precisely calculated, enough to destroy tracking devices and evidence, but not so large as to trigger a forest fire. The tactical smoke grenades Wade had included created additional concealment as they descended into the ravine. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit temporarily faltered as Whitley's team regrouped to assess the explosion and locate their trail. As they navigated the challenging terrain, Diana finally broke the operational silence. For what it's worth, not everything was a lie. Wade maintained his focus on their route, scanning for hazards in pursuit. An interesting time to attempt personal reconciliation. Not reconciliation, she corrected. Clarification. We may not survive this, and I don't want to die with you believing everything between us was false. The entire relationship was constructed as an operational deception, Wade noted. The foundation invalidates whatever genuine moments might have occurred within it. Diana negotiated a steep section before responding. The assignment was to monitor you, to gain your trust, to establish a position close enough to determine if you were in contact with Whitley. The marriage was the operational framework. She paused. How I performed within that framework was my choice. Wade vaulted over a fallen tree, extending a hand automatically to assist her, a gesture of ingrained habits from 5 years together. Stockholm Syndrome works both ways, he observed. Handlers can develop attachments to their assets, just as assets can to their handlers. It doesn't make the relationship real. You're right, she acknowledged, surprising him. It wasn't real in the conventional sense, but it wasn't entirely manufactured either. The conversation paused as they both detected movement on the ridge above them. Whitley's team had found their trail faster than anticipated. They increased their pace, using the natural cover more aggressively. Does it matter? Wade finally asked. Whether some percentage of our marriage contained genuine emotional components. The operational objective negates any authenticity. Diana ducked under a low branch. It matters to me. Before Wade could respond, the distinctive sound of a helicopter approached from the east, Whitley escalating his resources beyond what they'd anticipated. We need better cover, Wade decided, changing direction toward a denser section of forest. The canopy there will prevent infrared tracking. As they adjusted their route, gunfire erupted from multiple positions, a coordinated attempt to herd them toward a predetermined ambush point. Wade recognized the tactic immediately. They're channeling us, he warned. Reese must be conscious in directing their movements. Diana assessed their options with professional efficiency. Countermeasure? The unexpected, Wade replied. He pointed to a steep, almost vertical section of the ravine wall. We go up instead of forward or back. The climb was treacherous, but both possessed the physical conditioning and tactical skills to manage it effectively. At the halfway point, Wade paused at a narrow ledge, retrieving another device from his equipment, a small launcher with specialized rounds. Sonic distraction, he explained briefly before firing multiple rounds in different directions. The devices would activate on impact, creating sound patterns that mimicked human movement, temporarily confusing pursuit teams. As they reached the top of the ravine, at a point nearly half a mile from their original descent location, Wade's secure phone vibrated with an encrypted message. Package secure. Proceeding to delivery point. Pursuit diverted. Silas had successfully evaded capture and was en route to Hammond with the drive. Phase 1 of the contingency plan was working. Now what? Diana asked, recognizing from Wade's expression that he'd received good news. Now we provide additional distraction, Wade decided. Whitley believes we still have the drive. As long as he's focused on capturing us, Silas has a clearer path. Diana studied him. You're proposing we act as deliberate bait. Precisely. She considered this. Tactically sound, but extremely high risk. Welcome to Ghost Protocol Operations, Wade replied. The highest risk for the highest priorities. Diana nodded, accepting the approach. So we make ourselves visible enough to maintain pursuit without being catchable. Exactly. And we head toward a specific destination. Wade oriented himself, confirming their position against mental topographical maps. There's an old hunting lodge 3 miles northwest. Defensible position, multiple exit routes, and most importantly, an emergency cache I established 2 years ago. More weapons. Among other things, Wade confirmed, including communication equipment that can't be monitored by conventional means. They set off at a sustainable pace, deliberately leaving enough sign of their passage to be tracked without making it too easy. The helicopter continued to sweep the area, but remained focused on their original descent path, thanks to the sonic distractions. As they traveled, Wade found himself studying Diana, the woman he'd believed was Lorraine, with new understanding. Her movements, her tactical decisions, her situational awareness all reflected the trained operative she truly was rather than the civilian persona she'd maintained for 5 years. You were CIA before internal affairs, he observed, connecting patterns in her behavior with operational backgrounds he recognized. She glanced at him. Field operations, specialized in deep cover placements. For major assignments before being recruited to internal affairs for the Whitley investigation. Which explains your comfort with long-term deception, Wade noted. Diana accepted the implied criticism without defense. The work requires certain psychological adaptations. Compartmentalization, dissociation, identity, fragmentation. Wade enumerated, familiar with the necessary psychological mechanisms from his own operational history. Yes, she acknowledged, but the fragments sometimes blur. Lines become less distinct over time. Wade understood the admission for what it was, an acknowledgement that her performance as Lorraine had not remained entirely professional, that elements of genuine emotional connection had developed despite operational parameters. The tracking helicopter suddenly changed direction, banking sharply toward their position. "They've spotted us," Diana warned, immediately moving toward denser cover. Wade assessed their options. "We're still 2 miles from the lodge. We need to divide their attention." He quickly formulated a tactical approach. "Split up. You continue northwest toward the lodge. I'll circle east to draw the aerial surveillance, then rejoin you." Diana shook her head. "They'll just divide their forces to pursue both trails." "Not if they believe I have the drive," Wade countered. He removed the decoy from his pocket and handed it to her. "Take this. I'll keep the cipher key visible enough to convince them I've still got both pieces." She hesitated. "That puts you at significantly higher risk. I'm more familiar with the terrain and have more experience evading this type of pursuit," Wade pointed out pragmatically. "And you need to reach the communications equipment at the lodge to contact your extraction team." After a brief tactical calculation, Diana nodded. "Rendezvous at the lodge in 90 minutes. If either of us doesn't arrive by then, the other proceeds with their respective mission." "Agreed." Before they separated, Diana held his gaze for a moment. "Be careful, Wade." "Operational concern?" he asked neutrally. "Not entirely," she replied, then disappeared into the forest heading northwest. Wade moved in the opposite direction, deliberately making himself visible enough for the helicopter to spot him before ducking back into cover. The gambit worked. The aerial pursuit immediately focused on his direction, while ground teams could be heard redirecting toward his location. For the next hour, Wade employed every evasion technique in his extensive training, creating false trails, using natural features to mask his heat signature from infrared, and occasionally allowing himself to be glimpsed just long enough to maintain pursuit without being caught. The entire time, his mind processed the operational dynamics alongside the personal revelations of the past days. Diana/Lorraine, Whitley, Resnick, the drive, the 5-year deception, all pieces in a complex puzzle that was finally taking recognizable form. By the time he approached the hunting lodge using a circuitous route designed to detect any potential ambush, Wade had reached several conclusions about both the mission and his marriage. Whether those conclusions would matter depended entirely on surviving the next few hours. He detected Diana's presence before seeing her. Subtle signs of position adjustment, controlled breathing, the almost imperceptible sound of a weapon being readied. "It's me," he announced quietly, approaching from an unexpected angle. She emerged from concealment, lowering her weapon. "You're 15 minutes early." Pursuit was more persistent than anticipated, Wade explained. "I had to eliminate 2 trackers." Her expression remained neutral, but her eyes asked the question. "Non-lethal," Wade confirmed. "They'll wake up with headaches and damaged professional pride. Nothing more." Diana nodded, relaxing slightly. "The lodge is secure. I've located your cache and established communications with my extraction team. They're on standby 20 miles south, awaiting coordinates." Wade moved past her to the lodge, a simple but sturdy structure deliberately unmaintained in its exterior appearance to discourage casual visitors while remaining structurally sound. Inside, Diana had already activated the equipment from his hidden cache, specialized communications gear, weapons, tactical supplies, and most importantly, a secure satellite connection unlinked to any conventional network. "Any word from Silas?" she asked as Wade checked the perimeter security measures. "Not since confirmation of package security," Wade replied. "Radio silence is part of the protocol. He'll contact again only after delivery or if compromised." Diana watched him work efficiently through the security and communication procedures. "Your contingency planning is impressive. Multiple caches, secure locations, communication protocols, all maintained for 5 years while pretending to be a simple security guard with anger issues. Just as you maintain deep cover as a loving wife while reporting my every move to your handlers," Wade observed without looking up from the equipment. "Not every move, Diana corrected quietly. Wade paused, finally meeting her eyes. Meaning there were aspects of our life together I deemed irrelevant to the investigation. Private moments that had no bearing on whether you were communicating with Whitley or possessed classified intelligence. You selectively reported, Wade clarified. I maintained operational focus while preserving certain boundaries, she amended. Before Wade could respond, the satellite communication system indicated an incoming secure transmission. He activated the reception protocols, revealing Hammond's face on the encrypted video link. Situation update. Hammond demanded without preamble. Package in transit with Ghost 2, Wade reported. Estimated delivery within 3 hours, assuming no further complications. Pursuit diverted toward our position as planned. Hammond nodded, processing the information with characteristic efficiency. Ghost 2 made contact 20 minutes ago. His position is secure, but he's detected flanking movement, suggesting Whitley has divided his resources. Expected, Wade acknowledged. Initial diversion bought necessary time advantage. Whitley can't cover all possibilities simultaneously. Hammond's expression turned grave. There's a complication. Victor Resnick has arrived ahead of schedule. His team attempted to intercept Whitley at the hotel, but arrived after your departure. Now both are converging on your general location based on intelligence from their respective sources. This changed the tactical situation significantly. Estimated timeline for convergence. 2 hours, possibly less, Hammond replied. Resnick brought substantial resources, private military contractors, advanced surveillance equipment, air support. If he and Whitley join forces, even temporarily, to locate the drive. They won't, Wade concluded confidently. Their objectives are mutually exclusive. Resnick wants the drive to protect his family's assets and eliminate evidence. Whitley wants it to leverage the information for personal gain and influence. Regardless, Hammond continued, the situation has escalated beyond our initial parameters. I'm authorizing full Mako protocol. Diana tensed visibly at this, recognizing the terminology from her intelligence background. Mako protocol essentially removed all operational restrictions, authorizing extreme measures to complete the mission regardless of collateral consequences. Understood, Wade acknowledged solemnly. And the contingency package? In position, Hammond confirmed. Awaiting your activation signal. Wade nodded. We'll proceed as planned. Updates as circumstances permit. The communication ended, leaving Wade and Diana in momentary silence as they processed the implications. What's the contingency package? Diana finally asked. Wade studied her, weighing operational security against the practical reality that they were now irrevocably linked in this mission, regardless of their conflicting ultimate objectives. Insurance, he answered simply. In case Whitley or Resnick breach containment parameters. Diana recognized the deliberate vagueness, but didn't push further. Instead, she focused on immediate tactical considerations. If Resnick's team is approaching from the south and Whitley's from the east, our extraction options are severely limited. We're not extracting yet, Wade corrected. Silas needs more time to reach the delivery point with the drive. Our role is to maintain the diversion as long as possible. That's suicide against their combined resources, Diana objected. Wade moved to the cache, retrieving additional equipment. Not if we redirect their attention toward each other rather than us. Understanding dawned in Diana's eyes. You're going to pit them against each other. They're already fundamentally opposed, Wade explained. Resnick believes Whitley stole the intelligence about his family's hidden assets. Whitley knows Resnick will eliminate him if he gets the chance. Their temporary cooperation is purely pragmatic and inherently unstable. So we exploit that instability, Diana concluded. Ow! Wade extracted a specialized communication device from the cache. By giving each exactly what they expect to hear from the other. For the next 20 minutes, Wade programmed the device with voice samples and message content designed to create maximum discord between Whitley and Resnick's forces. The technology, far beyond anything commercially available, could replicate communication patterns and vocal characteristics with enough authenticity to temporarily deceive even trained operators. This will buy us perhaps 30 minutes of confusion, Wade estimated, during which we need to relocate to a more defensible position. He pointed to a topographical map of the area. Here, abandoned fire watchtower on the northern ridge. Higher ground, better visibility, multiple escape routes, and another cache I established. Diana studied the map, noting the tactical advantages of the position. 40-minute hike over difficult terrain. Will be exposed for at least part of the approach. Hence the need for our friends to be thoroughly distracted, Wade confirmed. As they prepared to depart, Diana hesitated. There's something you should know. About Silas. Wade paused, attention sharpening. What about him? He wasn't just acting as your former teammate when he helped with the plan, she revealed. He's been an active CIA asset for the past 3 years, specifically assigned to monitor potential approaches to you from Whitley's network. The revelation landed like a physical blow. Silas is your asset. Not mine personally, Diana clarified. Different operational division, same ultimate objective. Protecting classified intelligence from compromise. Wade processed this new layer of deception. Another trusted connection revealed as something entirely different than it appeared. Does he have orders regarding the drive? Diana met his gaze directly. Yes. If capture is imminent, destruction takes priority over delivery. Wade nodded slowly, having expected as much. Hammond is aware. Hammond is the one who recruited him, Diana confirmed. This final piece clicked everything into place for Wade. The entire situation, from his marriage to Lorraine/Diana to Silas's unexpected appearance when needed, had been part of a coordinated long-term operation to locate and secure the intelligence from Beirut. So, I've been at the center of an elaborately orchestrated operational theater for 5 years, Wade observed, his voice deliberately neutral despite the profound implications. My life as Wade Blackwood was never my own creation, but a monitored containment environment. Diana didn't deny it. The intelligence community couldn't risk the drive falling into the wrong hands. Your disappearance after Beirut created an unprecedented security vulnerability. The Ghost Protocol meant normal monitoring channels were ineffective. So you created artificial monitoring channels instead, Wade concluded. A fake wife, a compromised teammate, probably others I haven't identified yet. Not fake, Diana corrected quietly. Operational. The distinction without a difference didn't merit response. Wade finished gathering the necessary equipment and moved toward the exit. Let's go. Regardless of who's been manipulating whom, we still need to reach the watchtower before Whitley and Resnick's forces untangle the disinformation. As they departed the lodge, Wade activated the first of the simulated communications. A message apparently from Whitley's team to their leader indicating visual confirmation of Resnick moving to flank his position. The corresponding message, seemingly from Resnick's team, warned of Whitley's forces establishing ambush parameters. The resulting radio chatter, which they monitored as they moved north toward the watchtower, confirmed the effectiveness of the deception. Both teams immediately adjusted their movements to counter the perceived threats from each other, temporarily reducing their focus on tracking Wade and Diana. They made good progress through the challenging terrain, Wade's intimate knowledge of the landscape allowing them to utilize natural features for concealment while maintaining efficient movement. Halfway to the watchtower, Wade's secure phone vibrated with another message from Silas, perimeter breach. Secondary extraction active. Package secure, but compromised pursuit. Implementing fail-safe protocols. Wade's expression tightened. Silas is under pursuit. He's diverted to secondary extraction route and activated fail-safe measures. Meaning? Diana asked. He's separated the drive and cipher key, taking different routes to the delivery point, Wade explained. Standard Ghost Team protocol for high-value intelligence under compromised conditions. Diana processed this. That significantly increases the risk of total loss if either piece is captured. It also ensures that neither Whitley nor Resnick can utilize the intelligence if they capture only one component, Wade countered, which is the primary objective. As they continued toward the watchtower, The sounds of distant gunfire confirmed that their disinformation strategy had worked perhaps too well. Whitley and Resnick's forces had engaged directly rather than merely adjusting positions. That escalated faster than anticipated, Diana observed. Men like Whitley and Resnick have limited trust thresholds, Wade replied. Once suspicion is established, confirmation bias does the rest. They reached the base of the watchtower ridge as helicopter rotors became audible again. Multiple aircraft now, suggesting both Whitley and Resnick had deployed air assets. The climb was steep, but manageable for their level of physical conditioning. Near the top, Wade paused to assess their pursuit status, using high-powered compact binoculars to scan the surrounding terrain. Conflict has temporarily contained both forces to the southeast quadrant, he reported. But they'll sort out the deception soon. We have perhaps 20 minutes before coordinated pursuit resumes. Diana nodded, catching her breath. And Silas. Wade redirected the binoculars northward. No visual confirmation, but the extraction route would take him well east of our position. Assuming standard evasion protocols, he's maintaining maximum separation from our location to divide pursuit resources. They reached the watchtower, a weathered structure that appeared precarious but had been covertly reinforced during one of Wade's previous contingency preparations. Inside, he quickly located and accessed the hidden cache, retrieving additional communications equipment, weapons, and surveillance technology. Establish perimeter monitoring, Wade instructed, handing Diana several small sensor devices. These will provide early warning of approach from any direction. While she secured the perimeter, Wade established communication with Hammond through another encrypted channel. Ghost 2's position? He asked immediately. Hammond's voice came through clearly despite the encryption. Last confirmed location was Checkpoint Delta, 17 minutes ago. Pursuit identified as Resnick's secondary team. Containment measures in progress. Status of package components? Secure, but separated, Hammond confirmed. Estimating 40 minutes to recombination at delivery point, assuming current trajectories maintain. Wade processed this. We're maintaining diversion as planned. Whitley and Resnick forces temporarily engaged with each other following disinformation insertion. Understood. Be advised, satellite shows movement converging on your position from multiple vectors. Estimate confrontation imminent. Acknowledged. Maintaining position until package confirmation, then implementing extraction plan whiskey. The communication ended as Diana returned from placing the sensors. Perimeter secured. We'll have approximately 60 seconds warning of approach from any direction. Wade nodded, activating the surveillance display that would monitor the sensor network. Now we wait. For what? Diana asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. For confirmation that the drive and key have reached Hammond, Wade replied. Once that happens, our diversion is no longer necessary. Diana studied him. And then we implement extraction plan whiskey, Wade stated simply. Which is? Wade met her gaze directly. A decisive termination of Whitley and Resnick's operational capabilities in this region. Understanding dawned in Diana's eyes. The contingency package. Wade didn't confirm or deny, instead focusing on the surveillance display where multiple heat signatures were now visible approaching from various directions. The pursuit forces having resolved their temporary conflict and refocused on their primary objective. They're coming, Diana observed unnecessarily. Yes, Wade agreed. Estimated 8 minutes to first contact. Diana checked her weapon and positioned herself optimally within the tower's defensive structure. What happens after? Assuming we survive and the drive reaches Hammond safely. That depends largely on what's actually on it, Wade replied. And on what your real orders are regarding me once the intelligence is secured. Diana's expression revealed nothing. What makes you think I have orders regarding you? 5 years of deep cover surveillance doesn't end with a simple extraction, Wade noted. A man with my background, who's possessed highly sensitive intelligence, presents an ongoing security consideration. The logical conclusion is that you have specific directives for post-operation handling. After a moment of silence, Diana nodded once. Extraction to a secure facility for debriefing was the original directive. Debriefing, Wade repeated with a hint of irony. A comfortable euphemism for indefinite detention and interrogation. It wasn't my decision, she said quietly. But it was your assignment, Wade countered. Before she could respond, one of the perimeter sensors triggered an alert. Movement from the eastern approach, faster than anticipated. They found us, Wade confirmed, checking the surveillance display. Multiple teams converging from 3 directions. Diana moved to a defensive position, weapon ready. Options: hold position until package confirmation, Wade stated firmly. Everything else is secondary. The first shots came moments later, suppressed weapons firing from concealed positions in the tree line below. The rounds impacted the tower's structure harmlessly, revealing that the attackers were still establishing targeting solutions rather than executing a coordinated assault. Wade and Diana returned measured fire, not to eliminate threats, but to force them into defensive positions, extending the confrontation timeline. This is Whitley's advance team, Wade assessed, recognizing the tactical approach. Resnick's forces would be more direct, less concerned with structural preservation. As if confirming his analysis, a different pattern of fire erupted from the western approach. Heavier weapons, more aggressive positioning. And there's Resnick, Diana observed dryly. The conflicting tactical approaches of the two forces actually worked in Wade and Diana's favor initially, creating disruption and confusion as they inadvertently interfered with each other's assault plans. Wade used the opportunity to activate another secure communication channel. Ghost Actual to delivery point. Status update. Hammond's voice came through immediately. Package components in transit. Ghost 2 has reached first checkpoint with drive. Cipher key being transported by a secondary courier following compromise. Estimated delivery completion in 15 minutes. Acknowledged. Current position compromised, but sustainable for that timeline. Be advised, Hammond added. Satellite shows substantial reinforcements approaching your location. Extraction window narrowing rapidly. Wade checked the surveillance display, confirming Hammond's assessment. Both Whitley and Resnick had committed significant additional resources, including what appeared to be specialized assault teams. Understood. We'll advise when ready for whiskey implementation. The communication ended as the assault intensity increased. Both forces now employing coordinated fire and movement techniques to advance on the tower. 15 minutes, Wade informed Diana. We need to hold until then. She nodded, adjusting her position to cover a different sector. That's a long time with their resources. Then we need to ensure they remain divided rather than coordinated, Wade decided. He retrieved a specialized device from the cache, a tactical sound projector that could simulate gunfire and explosions. Cover me, he instructed, moving to a position where he could deploy the device effectively. Diana provided suppressive fire while Wade programmed and activated the projector. Within moments, the device began generating convincing audio patterns that suggested a third force was engaging from the northern perimeter, directly between Whitley and Resnick's positions. The effect was immediate. Both forces diverted resources to address this perceived new threat, firing into empty forest and inadvertently toward each other in some cases. That won't fool them for long, Diana warned. It doesn't need to, Wade replied. Just long enough. The firefight intensified as both Whitley and Resnick committed additional resources, determined to secure the tower and what they believed was the drive still in Wade's possession. Wade and Diana maintained disciplined, conservative engagement, preserving ammunition, focusing on suppression rather than elimination, extending the confrontation without unnecessarily escalating the threat level to themselves. 10 minutes into the engagement, Wade's secure phone vibrated with a message from Hammond. Drive component secured. Awaiting cipher key. Estimated 5 minutes to complete package delivery. Almost there, Wade informed Diana. Key still in transit, but drive has reached Hammond. Diana nodded, not taking her eyes from her sector of fire. And then extraction plan whiskey? Yes, Wade confirmed. Once the complete package is secured, this location becomes expendable. The implication was clear, but Diana didn't question further, focusing instead on the immediate tactical situation as Whitley's forces began a more coordinated approach from the eastern face of the tower. "They're getting bolder," she observed, adjusting her position to better counter the new threat. "They're getting desperate," Wade corrected. Whitley knows his opportunity is closing. Resnick too. "They'll commit everything now, assuming the drive is still here." As if validating his assessment, the sound of approaching helicopters became audible, both forces apparently deciding to commit their air assets despite the risk of being targeted from the elevated tower position. Wade checked the surveillance display again, noting the deployment patterns and calculating timing. 2 minutes until they're in position for a coordinated final assault from all directions. Diana's expression remained professionally focused, but a hint of concern showed in her eyes. "Cutting it close. That's generally how Ghost Protocol operations conclude," Wade noted with grim humor. The helicopters came into view, one bearing Whitley's private security markings, the other unmarked but clearly associated with Resnick's resources based on its tactical positioning. Wade's phone vibrated one final time. The message was just 2 words: "Package complete." "It's done," Wade announced. "Hammond has both components. The drive and cipher key are secured." Diana nodded, visibly relieved despite the intensifying assault on their position. "Now extraction plan whiskey." "Now extraction plan whiskey," Wade confirmed, reaching for a specialized communication device that had remained unused until this moment. As he activated it, Diana asked the question that had clearly been bothering her throughout the confrontation. "What exactly does whiskey entail?" Wade met her eyes directly. "The contingency package I mentioned isn't just equipment or supplies. It's a specially trained tactical team that Hammond has had on standby since this began. Former operators with specific expertise in high-risk extraction." Understanding dawned in Diana's expression. "They've been positioned nearby all along." "Within 20 miles, Wade confirmed, awaiting confirmation of package delivery before engagement. Wade spoke into the secure device. "Ghost Actual to Whiskey Team. Confirmation code Echo Sierra 973. Package secured. Implement extraction protocol immediately." The response was immediate and professional. "Whiskey acknowledged. Vectors established. Hold position for 4 minutes, then egress via route Tango." As Wade returned the device to its secure pouch, Diana studied him with new understanding. "You've had an extraction plan independent of my team all along." "Of course," Wade replied simply, "just as you've likely had contingency measures for my detention once the drive was secured." Before she could respond, the tactical situation changed dramatically. Both helicopters suddenly altered their approach, banking away from the tower rather than continuing their assault positioning. On the ground, Whitley and Resnick's forces began disengaging as well, responding to communications inaudible from tower. "They're withdrawing," Diana observed with surprise. Wade checked the surveillance display, confirming her assessment. "No, they're repositioning to counter a new threat." He pointed to the northwestern approach, where multiple new heat signatures were now visible, moving toward both Whitley and Resnick's positions. "Whiskey Team," Wade identified. "Hammond's operators engaging to create our extraction corridor." The sound of renewed gunfire erupted, but now directed away from the tower as Whitley and Resnick's forces engaged the newcomers. "Our window opens in approximately 2 minutes," Wade informed Diana, already gathering essential equipment and preparing for rapid egress. Route Tango takes us north through the forest to a concealed extraction vehicle. Diana hesitated. "My orders are still to bring you in for debriefing." Wade continued his preparations without pausing. "And my objective is to disappear. Again, permanently this time." "Wade," Diana said softly, using his name in a way that momentarily cut through the operational facade. "The people I work for won't stop looking for you." "They never do," he acknowledged. "But this time, I won't be leaving a trail for someone to follow." He looked at her directly. "No wife to report my movements. No compromised teammate to monitor my communications. No handler tracking my resources." Diana absorbed this, then made her decision. Reaching into her tactical vest, she removed a small tracking device. This was activated when we left the hotel. My extraction team has been following it throughout our movement in the mountains. Wade took the device without comment, studying it briefly before securing it in the tower, where it would remain after their departure. They'll know you helped me escape, he noted. They'll know the device remained in the tower, she corrected. Whether that represents captivity, death, or cooperation will be a matter of interpretation. Wade recognized the professional courtesy for what it was. She was giving him a head start, but not a free pass. Her operational integrity remained intact while still acknowledging the personal complexity of their situation. Why? He asked simply. Diana checked her weapon one final time before responding. Because not everything was a lie. Before Wade could respond, Whiskey Team's leader made contact through the secure channel. Extraction route secured. Proceed immediately. Window estimated at 4 minutes before containment compromised. Acknowledged, Wade replied. Proceeding now. They descended the tower rapidly using the north face, which now provided the most concealment from the ongoing conflict between Whiskey Team and the combined forces of Whitley and Resnick. As they reached the ground, Wade paused to activate one final device, a specialized charge set to destroy the tower and all evidence within it approximately 7 minutes after their departure. No loose ends, he explained briefly. They moved through the forest with practiced efficiency, Diana matching Wade's pace without difficulty, her training once again evident in her movement patterns and situational awareness. 3 minutes into their egress, they reached a concealed position overlooking the ongoing confrontation. Whiskey Team was executing a disciplined fighting withdrawal, having successfully disrupted both Whitley and Resnick's forces enough to prevent coordinated pursuit. In the distance, the distinctive sound of approaching law enforcement helicopters became audible, the final phase of Hammond's contingency plan, ensuring that whatever remained of the confrontation would quickly become entangled in official investigation, further complicating any pursuit of Wade. Your extraction vehicle? Diana asked as they continued north. Half a mile ahead, Wade confirmed. Predetermined route to a secure location for immediate identity transition and disappearance. Diana processed this. You really are going ghost again. It's what I do best, Wade replied. Disappear when the mission requires it. As they approached the extraction point, a concealed all-terrain vehicle positioned for rapid departure, the tower behind them erupted in a controlled detonation, precisely as programmed. The explosion would eliminate any evidence of their presence while further distracting pursuit forces. At the vehicle, Wade paused before entering. Last chance to fulfill your original orders, Agent Keller. I'm sure your extraction team could still apprehend me if properly directed. Diana studied him for a long moment. My mission was to secure the intelligence and prevent it from falling into unauthorized hands. That objective has been accomplished. A convenient interpretation of your parameters, Wade observed. An accurate one, she countered. What happens now is a matter of operational discretion. Wade recognized the professional courtesy for what it was. She was choosing not to pursue him, at least not immediately, without explicitly violating her directives. How long? He asked. 24 hours, she replied. After that, standard protocols resume. Wade nodded his acceptance of these terms. For what it's worth, Lorraine Blackwood was the closest thing to normal I've experienced in 20 years. A complex emotion passed across Diana's face. For what it's worth, being her wasn't entirely an act. They held each other's gaze for a moment longer, two professionals acknowledging the impossible complexity of what had passed between them, the authentic emotions that had developed within an inauthentic framework. Then Wade entered the vehicle and was gone, disappearing into the forest as sirens and helicopters converged on the burning watchtower behind them. Diana watched him go, already mentally composing the report that would explain her separation from the target under combat conditions, the loss of tracking capability, the tactical decision to prioritize intelligence security over immediate apprehension. All technically true, all professionally justifiable, all providing Wade Blackwood the time he needed to once again become a ghost. As she turned to begin her own extraction, Diana allowed herself a moment of acknowledgement that sometimes Even in their world of shadows and deception, genuine connections formed in the most unlikely circumstances. Not enough to change the fundamental parameters of who they were or the operational imperatives that defined their choices, but enough to matter in the quiet moments of reflection that followed mission completion. Enough to give Wade Blackwood a head start before the hunt inevitably began again. Chapter 8. Shadowed Reckonings. The small coastal town in Maine appeared on no tourist maps. Its single main street lined with weathered buildings that had witnessed generations of harsh winters and salty air without complaint. The diner at the edge of town served strong coffee and asked no questions of the quiet man who had taken residence in the cabin halfway up the pine-covered hill overlooking the harbor. Known locally as James Barrett, former military contractor with a preference for privacy, Wade Blackwood had established himself carefully over the past 3 months since disappearing from the mountains. New identity, new background, new patterns. The Ghost Protocol implemented flawlessly once again. Hammond's retirement had come suddenly and without explanation 2 weeks after the incident, official records citing health concerns while unofficial channels whispered about disagreements with senior leadership regarding certain operational decisions. His replacement knew nothing of Ghost protocols or assets that officially didn't exist. The drive and cipher key, according to carefully cultivated information sources, had been secured in a specialized containment facility within Langley, accessible only to those with the highest security clearances. Whatever secrets it contained about hidden gold, compromised officials, or shadow networks remained securely locked away, at least for now. Wade maintained his routine with disciplined consistency. Morning runs along the coastal path, occasional meals at the diner, supply purchases from the local general store, always friendly but never familiar. The perfect forgettable neighbor who generated no interest and invited no questions. Until the morning he returned from his run to find Victor Resnick sitting calmly on his porch. Commander Blackwood, Resnick greeted him in a thick Eastern European accent. Or James Barrett, if you prefer. May I offer congratulations on another exemplary disappearance. Wade assessed the situation instantly. Resnick was alone, visibly at least, and making no threatening movements. His expensive but understated clothing suggested he had come in person rather than sending operatives, a sign of either respect or necessity. How did you find me? Wade asked simply, maintaining distance while calculating angles, escape routes, and potential concealed weapons. Resnick smiled slightly. I didn't. Howard Hammond did. The mention of Hammond sent a chill through Wade. Hammond is retired. Indeed he is, Resnick agreed. Currently enjoying the climate of a small island in the Caribbean that has no extradition treaty with the United States. An expensive retirement for a man on a government pension. The implication was clear. You turned Hammond. I presented options, Resnick corrected, just as I'm here to present options to you. Wade remained outwardly calm while mentally reviewing the cabin's defensive measures and weapon caches. I'm listening. 3 months ago in the mountains, a drive containing information about my family's assets was secured by U.S. intelligence, Resnick began. The same drive that went missing during the Beirut operation that killed my brother. I'm aware of the history, Wade acknowledged. What you may not be aware of, Resnick continued, is that the drive contains far more than location coordinates for gold bullion. It contains authentication codes for accessing accounts established during the Cold War. Accounts that technically belong to my family, but have been utilized by various intelligence agencies for decades to fund operations beyond official oversight. This aligned with what Whitley had claimed about the drive's contents. Shadow financing, Wade observed. Precisely, Resnick confirmed. Billions in resources that officially don't exist, used to fund operations that officially never happened. My brother was the primary administrator of these accounts, trusted by multiple interested parties to maintain the system's integrity while allowing controlled access when necessary. Wade processed this new information. And with his death, you inherited that position. I should have, Resnick corrected. Except the authentication codes were secured by your team during the Beirut operation. Without them, I have nominal ownership of assets I cannot access, which explains your persistent interest in finding me, Wade concluded. You believed I had the codes. A reasonable assumption based on available intelligence, Resnick acknowledged. What neither I nor Whitley anticipated was that the codes would end up secured within Langley itself. So what do you want from me? Wade asked directly. I don't have the codes. I can't access the facility where they're stored. Resnick smiled slightly. But you know someone who can. The realization was immediate. Agent Keller. Indeed, Resnick confirmed. Diana Keller, previously known to you as Lorraine Blackwood, currently assigned to the very division that oversees the containment facility housing the drive. Wade maintained his neutral expression despite the mention of Diana. He had deliberately avoided seeking information about her whereabouts or activities since their separation in the mountains. Even if that's true, what makes you think she would risk her career and freedom to access classified intelligence for you? Not for me, Resnick corrected. For you. Wade laughed without humor. You significantly misunderstand our relationship. Do I? Resnick asked mildly. My sources indicate she provided you a 24-hour head start before resumption of pursuit protocols. A professional courtesy that nearly cost her her position within the agency. This was new information. Wade had assumed Diana had simply filed reports that technically fulfilled her obligations while allowing him time to disappear. If she had explicitly delayed pursuit, what exactly are you proposing? Wade asked, refocusing on the immediate situation. A mutually beneficial arrangement, Resnick replied. I need the authentication codes from the drive. You need permanent freedom from pursuit. Agent Keller needs. Well, that's for you to determine. And Whitley, where does he fit in this arrangement? Resnick's expression hardened slightly. Mr. Whitley is no longer a concern. The implication was clear, though Wade felt no particular remorse. Whitley had been willing to eliminate him and anyone else who stood between him and the leverage he sought. So you want me to contact Diana, convince her to commit treason by stealing classified intelligence and deliver it to you? Wade summarized. In exchange for what exactly? In exchange for two things, Resnick specified. First, financial resources sufficient to establish a new identity that would never be compromised, accounts, properties, documentation beyond even Ghost Protocol standards. And second, confirmation that your role in the Beirut operation has been permanently expunged from all records, Resnick stated. No one would have reason to hunt Commander Blackwood, because Commander Blackwood would officially have never existed. The offer was precisely calculated to appeal to Wade's primary objectives, permanent security and freedom from pursuit. Whether Resnick could actually deliver on such promises was another question entirely. And if I decline? Wade asked, though he already knew the answer. Then I provide certain interested parties with your current location and identity, Resnick replied matter-of-factly. Not just U.S. intelligence, but various other organizations who maintain an interest in the individuals involved in the Beirut operation. A death sentence, effectively. Once found, Wade would spend whatever remained of his life either in a classified detention facility or hunted by multiple international entities. How do I contact you with my decision? Wade asked, neither accepting nor rejecting the proposal. Resnick placed a secure phone on the porch railing. This device is untraceable and secure. It contains only one contact number. You have 48 hours to make your decision. With that, he stood and walked calmly down the path to where a nondescript sedan waited at the road below. No threats, no dramatic ultimatums, just the cold calculation of a man accustomed to high-stakes negotiations. After Resnick's departure, Wade secured the perimeter, checking for surveillance devices or remaining personnel. Finding none, he considered his options, weighing variables and potential outcomes with a detached analysis that had kept him alive through decades of high-risk operations. Contacting Diana was possible but complicated. Standard communication channels would be monitored. Approaching her directly would trigger immediate countermeasures. Any attempt to leverage their past relationship would be anticipated and prepared for by her handlers. More fundamentally, the ethical implications of Resnick's proposal were problematic even by the flexible standards of Wade's operational history. The authentication codes controlled billions in assets that, while technically belonging to Resnick's family, have been utilized for decades by various intelligence operations. Returning them to Resnick's control would have far-reaching consequences beyond Wade's personal situation. As evening fell, Wade made his decision. He activated the secure phone provided by Resnick and dialed the single program number. "You've decided quickly," Resnick answered without preamble. "I need proof," Wade stated, "of Hammond's involvement, of your ability to deliver what you've promised, and of Whitley's current status." "Reasonable requests," Resnick acknowledged. "Check your email in 1 hour." After ending the call, Wade accessed a secure laptop that connected to one of several anonymous email accounts he had established upon arriving in Maine. Exactly 1 hour later, a message arrived containing 3 encrypted files. The first contained banking information for an account in Hammond's name in the Cayman Islands, showing a deposit of $5 million dated 2 weeks after the mountain incident, along with photographs of Hammond at a beachfront property that matched Resnick's description. The second contained documentation of a complete identity package: passports, licenses, property deeds, banking records, educational and employment history, for a man named Michael Harrington. The quality was exceptional, beyond even what Wade's Ghost Protocol resources could typically provide. The third contained a single image: Clarence Whitley, unmistakably deceased, in what appeared to be a hotel room. Wade studied all 3 files carefully, looking for inconsistencies or manipulation. Finding none, he was left with the unavoidable conclusion that Resnick could indeed deliver what he had promised. The question remained whether Wade was willing to pay the required price. After careful consideration, he made his second call on Resnick's secure phone. "I'll make contact," Wade stated when Resnick answered. "But I need operational parameters clearly established. What specifically do you need from the drive? And how do you propose the exchange would occur?" "Only the authentication codes," Resnick specified, "not the entire contents. The exchange would be handled through intermediaries at a neutral location of your choosing." "And Diana's safety?" Wade asked, the question revealing more than he intended about his priorities. "Would be guaranteed in writing, with financial security comparable to what I've offered you," Resnick assured him. "I have no interest in retribution, Commander, only in recovering what rightfully belongs to my family." After establishing additional operational details and contingencies, Wade ended the call with a final notice: "I'll make initial contact. Whether anything proceeds from there depends entirely on her response. I won't coerce or manipulate her into this." "I would expect nothing less from a man of your principles," Resnick replied, a hint of genuine respect in his voice. The following morning, Wade implemented the first phase of the contact protocol, using channels that had been established years earlier during Ghost Team operations, channels known only to former team members and specific handlers. He sent a coded message that would eventually reach Diana without triggering standard monitoring systems. The message was simple: echoes of mountains. Coffee at sunrise. The place where promises began. To anyone monitoring intelligence communications, it would appear as random data without context. To Diana, if she remembered their conversations during 5 years of marriage, it would identify the sender, suggest a meeting, and specify the location. The coffee shop where they had first met when Wade was 9 months into his security guard identity. Whether she would respond, whether she would come, whether she would even consider Resnick's proposal, all remained unknown variables in an increasingly complex equation. As Wade prepared for potential outcomes, he reflected on the irony of his situation. 5 years ago, he had disappeared to escape the consequences of the Beirut operation. Now he was considering actions that would irrevocably tie him to those same consequences, all to secure the freedom he had sought in the first place. And at the center of this decision was Diana Keller, the woman who had lived as Lorraine Blackwood, who had systematically betrayed him for 5 years while creating a connection that somehow, against all operational logic, had developed authentic elements. Whether those elements were sufficient to build even temporary trust remained to be seen. 3 days later, Wade sat at a corner table in the coffee shop that had witnessed the beginning of their counterfeit relationship. Positioned with clear sight lines to all entrances and exits, he sipped mediocre coffee and maintained a relaxed demeanor of someone simply enjoying a morning break. At precisely 7:17 a.m., the exact time they had first met 6 years earlier, Diana walked through the main entrance. She looked different than she had in the mountains. Her hair styled differently, her clothing more formal, her entire bearing more aligned with her true professional identity than the Lorraine persona. Yet Wade could see elements of both women in her movement patterns, her subtle expressions, the way she scanned the room with practiced nonchalance. She spotted him immediately but approached the counter first, ordering coffee before making her way to his table. No overt surveillance followed her, though Wade recognized the indicators of standard counter-surveillance measures in her behavior. She had taken precautions to ensure she wasn't followed. "You look well," she observed as she sat across from him, placing her coffee on the table between them. "Maine agrees with you." Wade didn't bother asking how she knew his location. "I'm surprised you came." "Professional curiosity," she replied. "Your message suggested urgency without immediate threat. An interesting combination." "And personal curiosity had no influence?" Wade asked, studying her carefully. Something flickered across her features, a momentary break in the professional facade. "Let's focus on why you risked contact after successfully disappearing for 3 months. Wade nodded, accepting the redirection. "Victor Resnick found me 3 days ago." Diana's expression remained controlled, but her body language shifted subtly into a more alert posture. "How?" "Hammond," Wade answered simply. Apparently retirement on a government pension wasn't sufficiently comfortable. Diana processed this. "Hammond sold your location to Resnick in exchange for $5 million in a Cayman account and a beachfront property beyond extradition." Her jaw tightened slightly, the betrayal clearly affecting her despite her professional detachment. "And Resnick wants the drive. Specifically, the authentication codes it contains," Wade clarified. "He claims they control access to accounts his family has administered for decades, accounts used to finance off-book operations for various intelligence agencies." Diana didn't confirm or deny, but her lack of surprise was telling. "And he wants me to help you acquire these codes?" "Yes. In exchange for complete identity packages for both of us, documentation, financial resources, properties, backgrounds that would never be compromised, and permanent expungement of all records connecting us to Beirut or subsequent operations." Diana's expression remained neutral, but Wade could see the calculations happening behind her eyes, assessing validity, weighing options, considering implications. "What happened to Whitley?" she asked after a moment. "Resnick happened to Whitley," Wade replied simply. "He's been eliminated." Diana nodded, having expected as much. "And you believe Resnick can deliver what he's promising?" "I've seen evidence of his capabilities," Wade confirmed. "The identity package he's prepared is beyond anything I've encountered in 20 years of operational experience." "So you've already decided to proceed," Diana observed. "I've decided to present the option," Wade corrected. "Whether it proceeds depends entirely on your decision." Diana studied him carefully. "Because you won't do this without me?" "Because I can't," Wade acknowledged. "The containment facility where the drive is secured is beyond my access capabilities. And because I won't manipulate you into this. After 5 years of deception in both directions, we've earned at least that much honesty." The statement hung between them, an acknowledgement of their complex history and the strange foundation of trust that had somehow developed within it. "There's something you should know," Diana said finally. "About the authentication codes Resnick wants." Wade waited, recognizing the significance of whatever she was about to reveal. "They don't just control access to accounts," she continued carefully. "They control a network that has financed black operations for decades. Assassinations, regime changes, technology development outside legal parameters. If Resnick gains exclusive control, he could potentially disrupt ongoing operations worldwide." Wade finished for her. "Or worse, selectively expose them to serve his own interests." Diana nodded. "The intelligence community compartmentalizes information for precisely this reason. No single person is supposed to have comprehensive understanding of certain systems. And yet the drive exists," Wade pointed out. "Someone created a vulnerability by consolidating that information." "Yes," Diana acknowledged. And now we're discussing making that vulnerability worse by transferring control to a private entity with his own agenda. The ethical implications were significant beyond the personal considerations of their own freedom and security. So your answer is no, Wade concluded. Diana surprised him by not immediately confirming this assumption. Instead, she asked, what would you do if you had those codes, that level of leverage over international intelligence operations? Nothing, Wade answered honestly. I'd secure them somewhere they couldn't be utilized by anyone, including myself. The power they represent is too dangerous for any individual to wield responsibly. Diana studied him for a long moment. I believe you, which presents a third option beyond simple acceptance or rejection of Resnick's proposal. Wade raised an eyebrow, intrigued. I'm listening. We retrieve the codes Diana outlined. We accept Resnick's resources and identity packages. But instead of delivering the actual codes, we provide him with a sophisticated forgery, convincing enough to pass initial verification, but designed to fail if actually implemented. The audacity of the proposal was breathtaking. Double-crossing Victor Resnick would make us permanent high-value targets for his organization. Only if he discovers the deception, Diana countered. With proper preparation, that discovery could be delayed long enough for us to establish our new identities and disappear completely. Using his own resources against him, Wade observed a grudging respect in his voice. Precisely, Diana confirmed. He gets what he believes are the authentication codes. We get the resources to disappear permanently, and the actual codes are secured where they can never be used. The plan was elegant in its calculated risk, balancing personal security against broader ethical considerations. It was also potentially suicidal if executed imperfectly. Why would you consider this? Wade asked directly. Your career, your position within the agency. You'd be sacrificing everything you've worked for. Something shifted in Diana's expression, a momentary glimpse beyond the professional facade to the woman beneath. 3 months ago in the mountains, you asked how much of our marriage was real. I gave you a partial answer then. Wade remembered. Not everything was a lie. The complete answer, Diana continued carefully, is that my assignment was real. My methods were operational. But somewhere during those 5 years, the boundaries between Lorraine Blackwood and Diana Keller became less distinct than they should have been. The admission hung between them. Not quite a declaration of authentic feeling, but an acknowledgement that what had developed between them had transcended the purely operational parameters that had initiated it. And now, Wade asked quietly, now I'm making a professional assessment that the codes represent a greater security risk in Resnick's hands than if they're permanently secured, Diana replied, reverting to operational language. And a personal acknowledgement that after 5 years of living together, I owe you something more than another betrayal. Wade processed this, recognizing both the professional rationalization and the personal truth beneath it. The technical challenges would be substantial, he noted, considering the operational aspects. Creating a forgery convincing enough to pass Resnick's verification while ensuring the actual codes are secured. I have access to resources that could accomplish both, Diana countered. Not easily, not without significant risk, but possible with proper planning and execution. Wade studied her, seeing both the CIA operative who had systematically monitored him for 5 years and the woman who had shared his home, his bed, his daily life during that same period. The duality was disorienting, but somehow appropriate given their shared history of operating within multiple identities. If we do this, he said finally, there's no going back. For either of us. I'm aware, Diana acknowledged. But continuing forward within existing parameters is equally untenable. Resnick found you once. He or others will find you again. My position within the agency becomes increasingly precarious as internal politics shift. The status quo is ultimately unsustainable for both of us. Her assessment aligned with Wade's own calculations. The Ghost Protocol had been compromised. Future disappearances would become progressively more difficult as resources and trusted contacts diminished. A permanent solution was required. How would we proceed? Wade asked, not yet committing, but acknowledging the potential viability of her proposal. For the next hour, they outlined a preliminary operational framework, access protocols, forgery methodology, secure communications, contingency measures, extraction timing. The planning was comprehensive, demonstrating both their professional capabilities and their intimate knowledge of each other's operational styles. When they had established the basic parameters, Diana finished her now-cold coffee and met Wade's gaze directly. "You understand the risks," she stated rather than asked. Wade nodded. "Better than most. The question isn't about risk assessment, but about trust. After everything, can we actually trust each other enough to execute something this complex together?" Diana considered this. Trust isn't binary in our profession. It's calculated, contextual, based on aligned interests and mutual vulnerability. Right now, our interests align more completely than at any point since we met. And we're equally vulnerable if either betrays the other. A pragmatic foundation, Wade observed. But not solely pragmatic, Diana added, surprising him again. We also have 5 years of shared history, regardless of the operational framework within which it occurred. That history has value in predicting reliability and understanding methodologies. Wade recognized the oblique acknowledgement of their personal connection, expressed in operational terms, but nonetheless genuine. 2 weeks, he decided. Preliminary preparations, resource allocation, forgery development. Then we make contact with Resnick to establish the exchange parameters. Diana nodded her agreement. "I'll need 3 days to secure necessary resources without triggering monitoring protocols. And I'll establish the secure communication channels and extraction pathways," Wade confirmed. They finalized operational details, established emergency contact procedures, and prepared to depart separately to avoid raising suspicion. As Diana stood to leave, Wade asked one final question. "If this succeeds, what happens afterward? We'll have new identities, resources, freedom from pursuit. But what then?" Diana considered this carefully before responding. "I don't know. For the first time in either of our professional lives, we would be truly off-script, without handlers or operational parameters." The uncertainty was somehow fitting. A clean slate after lives built on precise objectives and defined missions. "We'll adapt," Wade observed. "It's what we do." Diana's smile was brief but genuine, the first authentic expression he'd seen from her since the mountains. "Yes, it is." With that, she departed, leaving Wade alone with his coffee and the knowledge that he had just committed to the most complex and consequential operation of his career, with a partner whose very identity had been his longest and most personal deception, but also perhaps his most meaningful connection. Chapter 9. Ghosts No More. The Hotel Sovereign's presidential suite overlooks Central Park, its windows offering a panoramic view of Manhattan's iconic skyline illuminated against the evening sky. Within the opulently appointed space, Wade checked his appearance one final time in the bathroom mirror. The tailored suit, the professionally styled hair, the subtle physical adjustments that transformed James Barrett into Michael Harrington, international investment consultant and Resnick's expected intermediary. 6 weeks had passed since his coffee shop meeting with Diana. 6 weeks of meticulous preparation, resource acquisition, forgery development, and extraction planning. Now, on the verge of implementation, the operation represented their most elaborate and consequential collaboration. Wade's secure phone vibrated with an encrypted message. Package secured. Verification complete. Proceeding to exchange point. Diana had successfully accessed and duplicated the authentication codes, creating a forgery sophisticated enough to pass initial verification while containing carefully engineered flaws that would only become apparent when fully implemented. The actual codes had been secured using methodology known only to them, inaccessible to either Resnick or intelligence agencies. Wade checked the time. 15 minutes until Resnick's representative was scheduled to arrive. The exchange would be brief, professional, and thoroughly documented to ensure all parties fulfilled their obligations. Resnick himself would not be present, a standard security precaution for someone of his position. Instead, his chief of operations, Mikhail Lenkov, would handle the verification and exchange, with direct communication channels to Resnick throughout the process. Wade performed a final security sweep of the suite, confirming that his own countermeasures were in place, while identifying and neutralizing the surveillance devices that Resnick's advanced team had inevitably installed. Not all of them. Removing every device would create suspicion, but enough to ensure private communication when needed. At precisely 8 p.m., a discreet knock at the suite's door announced Lenkoff's arrival. Wade admitted him and his security detail, two professionally nondescript men whose bearing immediately identified them as former military or intelligence operatives. Mr. Harrington, Lenkoff greeted formally, though his eyes conveyed recognition of Wade's true identity. I trust everything is in order for our transaction. Indeed, Wade confirmed, gesturing toward the suite's dining area where a secure laptop had been set up for the verification process. Shall we proceed? Lenkoff directed his security team to establish perimeter positions while he joined Wade at the table. Mr. Resnick sends his regards and appreciation for your cooperation in this matter. Mutual interests make for effective partnerships, Wade replied neutrally. The verification process began with Lenkoff confirming the delivery of financial resources and identity packages as promised. Account access, property deeds, documentation, all were checked and confirmed. Everything appears to be in order, Wade acknowledged, having verified the resources matched exactly what had been promised. Now, for our part of the exchange. On cue, Diana entered from the suite's second bedroom, dressed in business attire appropriate for her role as Catherine Mercer, financial security specialist. In her hand was a secure storage device containing the forged authentication codes. Lenkoff's expression revealed momentary surprise at her presence, though he recovered quickly. Ms. Keller, Mr. Resnick didn't specify you would be participating directly. Security protocols required my personal verification of the transfer, Diana replied smoothly. The authentication process requires specific expertise. Lenkoff nodded his acceptance of this explanation. Of course. Please proceed. Diana connected the storage device to the secure laptop, entering a series of complex passwords to access the contents. On screen, encrypted data began downloading. The forged authentication codes designed to pass all initial verification while containing subtle flaws that would only become apparent when implemented within the actual account system. The verification process requires 3 stages, Diana explained professionally. Initial encryption confirmation, code sequence validation, and provisional access testing. As she spoke, her hands moved efficiently through the verification protocols, displaying technical expertise that aligned perfectly with her presented identity while concealing the sophisticated deception being implemented. Lenkoff observed carefully, occasionally communicating with Resnick via a secure earpiece, confirming steps as they proceeded. Encryption confirmation complete, Diana announced after several minutes. Proceeding to sequence validation. Wade maintained his position slightly behind Lenkoff, monitoring both the verification process and the security team's positions throughout the suite. Everything was proceeding according to plan, each participant performing their role. Sequence validation confirmed, Diana continued. Final stage, provisional access testing. This was the most critical moment. The test would show apparent successful connection to the account system while actually accessing a sophisticated simulation designed to mimic authentic response patterns. Diana initiated the test, and the screen displayed a series of confirmation messages indicating successful provisional access to the account network. Numerical sequences appeared, account identifiers verified, and finally, a green confirmation indicator signaled completion. Verification complete, Diana stated, disconnecting the storage device and handing it formally to Lenkoff. The authentication codes are now in your possession, with all verification protocols satisfied. Lenkoff accepted the device, communicating once more with Resnick before nodding with professional satisfaction. Mr. Resnick confirms receipt and verification. The transaction is complete. Then our business is concluded, Wade stated. I trust the resources provided will be maintained without monitoring or tracking as agreed. Of course, Lenkoff confirmed. Mr. Resnick values discretion and honors his commitments. The identities and resources are yours without conditions or surveillance. The formal phase of the exchange complete, Lenkov prepared to depart. As he reached the door, he turned back with a final observation. Mr. Resnick asked me to convey one additional message. Wade tensed slightly, alert for any indication that their deception had been detected. He said to tell you that ghosts eventually tire of haunting, Lenkov relayed. That perhaps Michael Harrington and Catherine Mercer will find more satisfaction in living than Commander Blackwood and Agent Keller found in disappearing. With that cryptic message delivered, Lenkov and his security team departed, leaving Wade and Diana alone in the presidential suite. They maintained operational silence until Wade completed another security sweep, confirming that no active monitoring devices remained. Only then did they allow themselves to acknowledge what they had accomplished. It worked, Diana stated, professional detachment giving way to carefully controlled relief. Phase 1 worked, Wade corrected. Resnick's verification was preliminary. When he attempts full implementation of the authentication codes, he'll encounter the embedded flaws, Diana finished. By which time we'll be operating under our new identities in locations disconnected from anything in our previous histories. Wade nodded, accessing the secure laptop to initiate the final security protocols, digital measures that would erase all traces of their activities from the hotel systems and any potential monitoring. Michael Harrington and Catherine Mercer, he mused, referencing Resnick's parting message. He seems to believe we'll be assuming those identities together. Diana met his gaze directly. That was the operational understanding conveyed during negotiation. 2 complete identity packages, resources divided equally, destinations coordinated for initial extraction but independent thereafter. And is that your intention? Wade asked. Independent destinations after extraction? The question hung between them. The first direct acknowledgement of potential post-operation connection since their coffee shop meeting 6 weeks earlier. Diana considered her response carefully. Operational security would suggest separation. Different locations, minimal contact, complete dissociation from previous patterns. Operationally sound, Wade agreed. And personally, something shifted in Diana's expression, a momentary glimpse beyond the professional facade to the woman beneath. Personally, I've spent 5 years with a partner who never existed, while being someone who wasn't real. The prospect of finally being authentic with someone who knows exactly who and what I am has a certain appeal. The admission wasn't romantic in conventional terms, but for 2 people who had lived their entire adult lives within calculated deceptions and operational parameters, it represented profound honesty. It would require adapting to existence without operational objectives, Wade observed, living without missions or handlers or predetermined parameters. Yes, Diana acknowledged. An entirely new protocol. Ghost Protocol was about disappearing, Wade noted. Perhaps this would be Living Protocol. The subtle humor earned a genuine smile from Diana, a rare expression that briefly revealed Lorraine without the deception, Diana without the operational mask. First, we need to complete our extraction, she reminded him, returning to immediate priorities. Resnick will discover the forgery within approximately 72 hours. Our new identities need to be fully established before then. Wade nodded, refocusing on operational necessities. The private jet is scheduled for departure at midnight, 8 hours to Panama, then separate charter flights to our initial destinations. Rio for me, Auckland for you, Diana confirmed. With rendezvous coordinates for Bali in 30 days if both extractions proceed without compromise. The plan was comprehensive, allowing for both independent security and potential reconnection depending on how the aftermath of their deception unfolded. They spent the next several hours systematically erasing all evidence of their presence in the suite, implementing digital security measures, and preparing for departure. Their coordination was seamless. 5 years of living together, regardless of the deceptive framework, had created an intuitive understanding of each other's methodologies and preferences. At 11:15 p.m., They departed the hotel Sovereign separately, using different exits and transportation methods to reach the private airfield where their extraction flight awaited. Security protocols were maintained throughout, with counter-surveillance measures ensuring they weren't followed. On board the private jet, secured through Resnick's resources but now operating under their control, they conducted final verification of their new documentation and financial access. Everything was in order. Resnick had indeed delivered exactly what he promised, creating the foundation for their new identities. As the jet reached cruising altitude over the Atlantic, Diana broke the comfortable operational silence. "When did you know that you weren't who you claimed to be?" Wade clarified. "Yes." Wade considered the question. "There were inconsistencies throughout our marriage, small details that didn't align perfectly with your cover identity. But I attributed them to normal human complexity rather than operational deception." "Until Walsh mentioned Beirut," Diana added. "Until Walsh," Wade confirmed. "Though even then, I initially believed you were working for Whitley rather than investigating him." Diana nodded thoughtfully. "And when did you decide to trust me in the mountains? To allow me to escape with you rather than treating me as another threat?" "When you identified Whitley as the primary target rather than me," Wade explained. "It aligned with operational patterns I recognized from legitimate internal investigations. Your tactics were too precise, too disciplined for someone merely pretending to be internal affairs." Diana absorbed this, then asked the question that clearly had been lingering since their confrontation in the mountains. "How much of it was real for you? Our marriage?" Wade met her gaze directly. "I committed to being Wade Blackwood completely. The security guard identity was fabricated, but my participation in our relationship was authentic within that framework. Even knowing it would eventually end when you either needed to disappear again or were discovered, operational considerations always remained present," Wade acknowledged. "But within those parameters, what developed between us wasn't calculated or deceptive on my part." Diana nodded, understanding the complex duality he described because she had experienced her own version of it. For what it's worth, Lorraine's feelings for Wade weren't entirely performance either. They were legitimate. She paused, searching for appropriate terminology, attachments that developed outside operational parameters. Coming from someone with Diana's training and professional discipline, this admission was significant, an acknowledgement that authentic connection had formed within an inauthentic framework. "So, where does that leave Michael Harrington and Catherine Mercer?" Wade asked, referencing their new identities. "Without operational directives," Diana noted. "Without performance requirements or surveillance reports or handler expectations. Operational freedom," Wade translated. "The ability to define parameters based on authentic preferences rather than mission objectives." Diana considered this perspective an interesting experiment. Two lifelong operatives attempting authentic connection without operational framework. "Is that what we're attempting?" Wade asked, the question more direct than their usual carefully calibrated communications. Diana met his gaze steadily. "I believe we are, though parameters remain undefined." "Perhaps that's appropriate," Wade suggested. "Defined parameters have governed our entire professional lives, our interaction with each other. Perhaps undefined is precisely what we need to explore." The conversation paused as the flight attendant, secured through Resnick's resources but vetted by their own protocols, brought refreshments before returning to the forward cabin. "Bali in 30 days, Diana said finally. "If extraction proceeds without compromise and both parties choose to implement rendezvous, a decision point without operational directive," Wade observed. "Yes," Diana confirmed. "A choice based on authentic preference rather than tactical necessity." For two people who had lived within the rigid structures of operational parameters for decades, this represented profound uncertainty and equally profound possibility. "I'll be there," Wade stated simply. Diana's response was equally direct. "So will I." The Balinese villa perched on a cliffside overlooking the Indian Ocean, its architecture blending seamlessly with the lush tropical landscape surrounding it. From the infinity pool extending from the main terrace, the horizon stretched unbroken, to where azure sky met deeper blue water. Wade, now fully established as Michael Harrington after 30 days of meticulous identity implementation, adjusted the umbrella shading the terrace table where breakfast had been laid out by the villa's staff. His physical appearance had been subtly altered, hairstyled differently, subtle cosmetic adjustments to facial features, different posture and movement patterns that together created a persona distinctly different from either Wade Blackwood or his previous aliases. The extraction had proceeded without compromise. Auckland had provided an ideal initial destination for identity establishment before transitioning to Bali 3 days earlier. Monitoring of secure channels confirmed that Resnick had indeed discovered the forgery in the authentication codes, triggering an extensive search for the deception's architects. A search focused primarily in Europe and North America, far from the current location. Whether Diana, now Catherine Mercer, would honor the rendezvous commitment remained uncertain. Her extraction to Rio had been confirmed successful through predetermined verification channels, but subsequent movements had been deliberately obscured according to their security protocols. Wade checked the time. 9:17 a.m., precisely 30 days since their separation in Panama. The rendezvous window extended until sunset, allowing for travel contingencies and final security verification. He maintained the relaxed demeanor appropriate to Michael Harrington's wealthy consultant identity, while his trained senses remained alert to approaching vehicles, changes in staff behavior, or any other indicators of potential compromise. At 10:23 a.m., a private car approached the villa's gated entrance. Wade monitored the security feed on his tablet, recognizing the expected hire car service, but unable to confirm the passenger from the camera angle. The villa's security system announced a visitor, and Wade authorized entry with practiced nonchalance. Minutes later, the terrace doors opened to reveal Diana, now Catherine Mercer, escorted by the property manager. Her transformation was as comprehensive as his own: different hairstyle and color, subtle alterations to facial appearance, entirely different style of dress and movement patterns. Yet Wade recognized her immediately, not from physical characteristics, but from the precise way she scanned the terrace upon entering, the calculated efficiency of her greeting to the property manager, the perfect balance of her stance that suggested constant readiness despite apparent relaxation. Ms. Mercer, Wade greeted formally, maintaining their cover identities. "How was your flight?" "Quite comfortable, thank you, Mr. Harrington," Diana replied, equally formal until the property manager had departed. "The villa is exactly as described. Excellent security features. I thought you'd appreciate those details," Wade noted, gesturing for her to join him at the table. "Coffee?" She accepted, settling into the chair with the best sight lines of both the entrance and the surrounding property, a professional habit that aligned with Wade's own positioning. For several minutes, they maintained operational protocol, checking for surveillance, confirming security parameters, establishing that both had arrived without compromise. Only when these necessities were completed did they allow the conversation to shift. "You made it," Wade observed unnecessarily. "As did you," Diane acknowledged. The simple exchange carried weight beyond the obvious. Both had chosen to honor the rendezvous commitment despite operational freedom to disappear independently. "Resnick?" Diana asked, her question encompassing multiple security concerns. "Actively hunting, but focused on false leads in Europe," Wade reported. "His resources are substantial, but currently misdirected. Hammond is providing periodic intelligence on search parameters." "Hammond is still cooperating?" Diana asked with surprise. "Self-preservation," Wade explained. "He knows we possess documentation of his arrangement with Resnick. Continuing to provide intelligence on Resnick's activities helps ensure that documentation remains secured rather than distributed." Diana nodded her approval of the arrangement. "And the actual authentication codes?" "Secured according to protocol," Wade confirmed. "Inaccessible without both our biometric verification and physical presence at the storage location." The essential security parameters established, a moment of silence fell between them. both accustomed to operational discussions but less practiced in personal conversation without deceptive framework. So, Diana said finally, Michael Harrington and Catherine Mercer, international investment consultant and security specialist, newly acquainted business associates exploring potential collaboration. Our current operational cover, Wade acknowledged. Is that what we're doing? Diana asked directly. Establishing another operational cover? The question cut to the heart of their uncertain status. Were they creating yet another deception, another performance within strategic parameters, or attempting something authentic? Wade considered his response carefully. I believe we're establishing whether connection is possible without operational directives. Whether what developed within deceptive framework can exist within authentic identity. An experiment in genuine relationship after lives built on tactical performance, Diana observed. Yes, Wade confirmed simply. Diana studied him for a moment. And if the experiment fails? If what existed between Wade and Lorraine cannot be translated to Michael and Catherine, then we implement extraction protocol and proceed independently, Wade replied pragmatically. Our resources are divided precisely to allow for that contingency. Diana nodded her appreciation of the practical approach. And if it succeeds, then we define new parameters, Wade suggested, not based on operational necessity, but on mutual preference. A voluntary partnership rather than a directive-driven performance. The concept was foreign to both of them. Relationship built on authentic choice rather than tactical requirement. 5 years of marriage had occurred within rigid operational frameworks. Genuine connection without those structures represented uncharted territory. How would we begin such an experiment? Diana asked, the question reflecting genuine uncertainty rather than tactical calculation. Wade considered this. Perhaps by acknowledging that neither of us has experience with authentic relationship unbound by operational parameters. That this represents new territory requiring adaptation and recalibration. Honesty as foundation, Diana translated. Straightforward acknowledgement of limitations and inexperience. Yes, Wade confirmed. In recognition that transition from operational to authentic will likely involve discomfort, uncertainty, and necessary adjustments to establish patterns. Diana's expression softened slightly. A different kind of mission, with undefined objectives and success parameters determined by subjective experience rather than tactical achievement. Precisely, Wade agreed. Unfamiliar methodology for both of us, but potentially worthwhile exploration. Diana picked up her coffee cup, considering the proposal with the same analytical thoroughness she applied to operational planning. Safeguards would be prudent, she noted. Predetermined extraction protocols if either party determines continuation non-viable. Of course, Wade agreed. Complete operational freedom maintained for both participants, with resources secured independently regardless of experimental outcome. The discussion maintained operational terminology while addressing fundamentally personal considerations, their professional backgrounds providing familiar framework for unfamiliar territory. Duration parameters? Diana asked. Initial phase, 3 months, Wade suggested. Sufficient for preliminary assessment without excessive resource commitment. Location parameters? Flexible according to security requirements, but consistently shared to establish authentic cohabitation patterns. The operational planning continued, both finding comfort in the familiar methodology while recognizing the personal territory it was being applied to. Each point was considered, discussed, agreed upon with the precision of mission preparation, yet addressing matters far beyond typical operational concerns. As they completed this initial planning phase, Diana's expression shifted slightly, professional analysis giving way to something more personal. 5 years of marriage built on deception, she observed, now attempting authentic connection without operational framework. The irony is considerable. As is the potential, Wade countered. Few people understand each other's capabilities, limitations, and fundamental nature as thoroughly as we do after 5 years of professional observation. True, Diana acknowledged, though that observation occurred within deceptive context. The deception was an identity and objective, Wade clarified, not necessarily in all behaviors and preferences displayed within that framework. Diana considered this distinction, suggesting that portions of our interaction were authentic despite the operational context. Precisely, Wade confirmed. The question becomes whether those authentic elements are sufficient foundation for non-operational connection. The conversation paused as both contemplated this fundamental uncertainty, whether genuine relationship could emerge from the ashes of tactical performance. A comprehensive experiment, Diana concluded finally, with full acknowledgement of unprecedented parameters and uncertain outcome probability. Yes, Wade agreed simply. Diana extended her hand formally across the table, the gesture simultaneously professional and deeply personal. Then let's proceed with initial phase implementation, Mr. Harrington. Wade took her hand, the contact maintaining operational propriety while conveying deeper significance. Agreed, Ms. Mercer. As they sat on the terrace overlooking the endless horizon of the Indian Ocean, both recognized the profound shift occurring. Two ghosts who had spent lifetimes disappearing now, attempting to truly appear to each other without operational disguise. Whether Michael Harrington and Catherine Mercer would succeed where Wade Blackwood and Lorraine Matthews had ultimately failed remained uncertain. But for the first time in either of their professional lives, the mission parameters prioritized authentic connection over tactical necessity. An unprecedented protocol for unprecedented circumstances. Not ghost protocol for disappearing, but living protocol for finally, genuinely appearing. For two lifelong operatives accustomed to shadows and deception, it represented their most challenging and potentially rewarding mission yet. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.